kicking off the list at number 10, we have Mimic. Calvin Rankin came into comics in X-Men 19. He was the son of a scientist, and when he was just a child, he knocked over a beaker filled with this experimental chemicals, okay? Now this red gas emerged and he inhaled it, so now he has this amazing ability where he can mimic anybody else's powers. They just have to be standing close by. Now the team at first is trying to take him down, but they're failing, of course, as he's just adapting to their every move. So while this ability does sound like one of the best, it kind of just depends on who's near you. I mean, he's not too powerful, but he is, if you're the one that's powerful that's near him. See what I mean? So if you're hanging out with Mimic, he may just seem pretty normal. That's because, well, shocker, you're just pretty normal. You can't fly, you can't shoot lasers out of your eyes. But if Cyclops came along, all of a sudden this guy is totally different. You're still a boring human. Now he's another Cyclops. How unfair is that? And before we continue on with this list, guys, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It really does wonders for our channel. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Now let's get right back into these crazy mutants. Number 9, not another teen mutant. Okay, this next one is a one-off, okay? He doesn't have a name exactly, so we'll just refer to him as Teen Mutant from now on. Not a Teen Mutant Ninja Turtle, just a Teen Mutant. Well, you'll see, it's kind of crazy. At first, he looks like a regular kid. He's got posters on his wall, one of which is Wolverine with the caption, "Be different," right below it, but we'll talk about that a little later, because he may have taken that a little too literally. So he wakes up, he's ready for school, he's looking for breakfast. His mom is nowhere to be seen, only a pile of her clothes remain on the ground. So he doesn't call the police, but rather he just writes a note, sticks it, and then goes to school. If you ever wake up and there's just clothes left, call the police no matter what. That comes first. On the way to school, he sees there's just a collar lying on the sidewalk. Just a collar, no animal. Okay, odd. What's going on? Finally, he sees people. He's like, okay, great. I'm not going crazy. Whew, that was a close one. But I bet that he wished that that was the case after what's about to happen. So he has this neat ability where people just don't survive being close to him. They kind of explode. It's pretty gross. And he hears it from the guy in that poster himself. He hears it from Wolverine when he finds him ducking out in a cave. So what happened was when he hit puberty, he developed a specific mutation that radiates a series of toxins and acid-like poisons. So it wipes out any organic tissue in its way. It turns it into vapor. So the number of people that he ended up taking out that day was a whopping 265. And you thought he was just another blonde-haired teen heartthrob. Think again. Number 8, El Guapo. This next one, I don't think I would even notice this mutant if he was standing right in front of my very eyes. Meet Robbie Rodriguez. He was the stuntman for X-Statix the movie. Now he saved the team from Sharon Ginsburg. She attacked because she blamed X-Statix for the amputation of her wings. So in comes Robbie Rodriguez with his sentient skateboard to save the day. That's right, sentient skateboard, you heard me. He has no real powers himself, but he has this symbiotic skateboard that acts along with his mental commands, even subconscious thoughts sometimes. So the skateboard once beat him up for cheating on his girlfriend. So next time you see a dude at the skate park, just double check and see if it's Robbie Rodriguez, because you never know. Number 7, Anarchist. Tyke Alucard made his first appearance in X-Force issue 116. The same issue that had Zeitgeist origins as well, actually, which is in part 2. If you haven't already seen it, I talk about him. He's the guy who pukes acid. Gross. But we also meet Tyke Alucard in this. So he said he doesn't want to go and give away all his secrets, but he's got something going on with his sweat. It's like acid. He can secrete acid from the pores of his body, and if there's enough of it, say that when he's fighting bad guys, it becomes this form of energy that he's able to blast out. He would blast these acid blasts. Like, how insane is that? The guy makes acid brass knuckles. Brassed knuckles. He was a new addition to the team to replace Sluck, but they weren't a fan of him at first. They thought he was a risk, not a team player, high maintenance, and mentally unstable. Although he pulled through for the team at the end of the day. Number 6, Cypher. Douglas Ramsey came around with comics with New Mutants issue 13. Now he believes that language is power. And when we first meet him, he's a smart dude in a vest. He's got nice hair, he's talking about deciphering codes. We wouldn't expect too much from him. Maybe he's their guy in the chair. Other chair. Now Douglas is actually quite powerful. His ability allows him to communicate with any species. Written or spoken language doesn't make a difference. Doug's got your back, whatever language that is. He can also extend this ability to decipher codes and complex equations, leaving him a pretty powerful asset to any team. Number 5, Eyeboy. Trevor Hawkins, again, one of those mutants where you can probably guess his mutation just on his name alone. Eyeboy is, yes, covered in eyes. 57 of them, to be exact. He made his first appearance in Wolverine and the X-Men issue 19. He was one of the new mutants that manifested their power after the Avengers vs. X-Men war. Then he enrolled in the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. So Eyeboy, okay, big deal. You walk up, you poke all of his eyes out, problem solved. We've played Zelda before, we know how to defeat this guy. Wrong. He is more than meets the eyes. Trevor can of course see you coming, and though his eyes can't shoot laser beams, they do have a plethora of unique abilities. I'm talking microscopic vision, telescopic vision, X-ray vision, night vision, infrared, thermal, chemical detection, you name it, he can see it. All these eyes will see you in any sense. He can even pick up on your body language quite well. Number 4, Nature Girl. Lin Lee made her debut in Wolverine and the X-Men Volume 2, Issue 1. And at first she seems like a regular student, just maybe with antlers. Okay. So Nature Girl can control and bond with animals, which sounds pretty peaceful if anything. Like if I could control animals, I'd spend all my time in the woods. I'd just take a flute and I'd have a great time. Maybe even pack a lunch. It'd be lovely. With her powers, she can of course do that, but also go further. She can connect to the natural world and control all of nature. Living beings, plants, weather, the very geology of the earth. Whatever the case is, she can control it. She can talk to plant lives as well. So if there's any plants that need some watering in your apartment, she'll let you know. And if Nature Girl needs to make a quick escape and there were no birds around to control, she herself can fly only for a limited time. Number 3, Gold Balls. Fabio Medina made his comic book debut in X-Men Volume 3, but it wasn't until issue 11 that we got to meet Gold Balls. His powers came to be after somebody tried to rob him, then all of a sudden he started to generate these spheres, these gold balls, out of every part of his body. And whenever these bouncy gold balls hit something, they would make a boink sound, which ought to be pretty annoying just as it is. So these gold balls were not made of gold, rather they were produced from infertile eggs. He's pretty outstanding as it is, but currently in the comics, he's referred to as Egg, which is more appropriate after he learned the true nature of his abilities. So Egg and these other members of the Five are tasked with resurrecting any mutants that have met their terrible fate. So eggs are a major key to this process. So he's not just all about, being gold and having balls and stuff. Number 2, Tag. Brian Cruz made his first appearance in New Mutants Volume 2, Issue 10. He was actually reborn thanks to that group of 5 that I just mentioned with gold balls. So Brian's powers are pretty amazing. I can see how one wouldn't expect him to be as powerful as he is. So he has what's called the pariah effect. So if he tags you, hence his name Tag, when he tags you, you become it. Then he uses this form of telepathy to make you emit this signal that causes everybody else to run away from you, just to leave your vicinity. Or they can run towards you, which is even scarier. And he can decide on that number of people affected as well. It could be one person chasing you, or it could be 200. Depends how many are near you. This effect stops after the victim reaches 100 feet. But still, that many people in that radius all running towards you, like what if it was Black Friday? It would be an absolute nightmare. Also, these people that are chasing you are fully aware of what's happening. They just can't control it. So if that's not a nightmare, I don't know what is. And finally, number 1, we have Summoner. Making his first appearance in X-Men Volume 5, Issue 2, the Summoner. The Summoner at first just looks like a mutant child. It's referring to its mother, so off the bat you assume, okay, young. He's the son of Bracken and Apocalypse's first horseman of war. He was born 300 years ago on Araco, the highest ranking out of all the other summoners. They were these wizards that can summon creatures of Araco. Now his grandmother was taken out by the dark god of Amenth, Annihilation. So that's when the Amenthi Daemons destroyed Araco's towers and then attacked and wiped out all those mutants. Now the Summoner is not just a pale child, he can summon a horde of elementals as well. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Multiple Man. James Madrox. He made his first comic book appearance in Giant Size Fantastic Four, Issue 4, and right off the bat, he seems very soft-spoken, he seems very gentle. I mean, the Thing is yelling at him and he's literally like, "Why do you reject me? Why?" Like, he's so almost poetic in a way. And then when the Thing goes to clobber him, bam, there's multiple more men. Now, he wasn't used very much in the X-Men, but he spent most of his days with X-Factor. But this guy is underrated. His powers may seem kind of weak compared to somebody like Jean Grey, but these duplicates can each make a duplicate.
Let me try something. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. Hi.
At one point, this guy had 40 of him running around town. 40. Now, the duplicates think, they feel, and they act independently, but they're guided by the original James Madrox. In a way, they're guided. They kind of know what to do. Each of these duplicates manifests one aspect of James' personality, and the longer the time away, the more those traits become extreme. And if one of these duplicates passed away, he can sense that the general area where the body is, which is like the saddest radar ever. This guy could take over the world if he wanted. It would be like that scene from The Matrix, but with more monologues probably. And before we go on to this list of X-Men you probably wouldn't expect to be that powerful, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, just right there, just give it a little tap tap, and it helps our studio out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get back to the list. Lickety split. Number 9, Darwin. We saw this next mutant for a hot minute in X-Men First Class. He was played by Eddie Gathegi, who unfortunately didn't survive too long. See, he threw his life down on the line in order to protect his fellow X-Men. And this was still in the early days too. What a champ. He first showed up in the comics in 2005 with X-Men Deadly Genesis issue 2. Armando Munoz looked a lot different than we saw on screen as well. Since he was 4 years old, he was bald, his arms were super long, and his eyes were changing. He sure looks a little bit different than the young, handsome actor that we saw in the movie. His ability comes in handy a lot actually, more so in the X-Men movies. See, in the comics, he's practically immortal. His ability once allowed him to survive Hela's death touch. I mean, it's a little bit different than the last time we saw him, that's for sure. Number 8, Caliban. An albino mutant and former member of the Morlocks, Caliban made his first comic book appearance in Uncanny X-Men 148. So he has the ability to track down any mutant. He actually sacrifices himself in the movie Logan, where Stephen Merchant played him. He was also in X-Men Apocalypse for a bit too, played by a different actor. He was played by Tomas Lamarcus. He was originally an ally to the X-Men, but once he became a tracker for Apocalypse in X-Factor issue 24, titled The Fall of the Mutants. So he's pretty powerful, and he's done a lot of cool stuff too. He may seem like a gentle, lanky, pale man, but when Caliban is stressed out in the comics, he gains 2 additional powers: super strength and fear absorption. So if you put him in a corner, he'll be able to absorb the psionic energy in your fear and use it to power himself up even more. Number 7, Glob Herman, aka Robert Herman, although Glob is much more fun to say. He made his debut in New X-Men issue 117, and he grew up with a father who despised mutants, so already he's off to a pretty rocky start. So when Glob mutated, his father was just not on board, so his mother drove Glob out to Westchester and just left him for Professor X. Like you leave a baby at a fire station, it's just like, yep, here you go, you're a problem now. This mutation was interesting. So his skin was this transparent living wax, which he's able to maintain being on fire, which is pretty amazing off the bat. You can light him on fire and he's good to go. That's amazing. He runs with the New Mutants now, and although his name is silly and he's literally a glob, he can also possess powers of super strength and super speed, despite how he may look. So he can get hit by these massive bombs like it's nothing, then he can fight whoever launched that bomb with ease. The X-Men literally once used him as a heat shield once. They strapped Glob to the front of their ship, and it didn't seem pleasant for a man Glob, but he was good. He didn't die or anything. He had to rest for a bit. Number 6, Toad. When you think of the name Toad in relation to a superhero, you're gonna picture something pretty silly in your head. And Mortimer Toneby isn't that far off from what you'd think. He made his first appearance in Uncanny X-Men issue 4. So he hops around, which seems silly, but his legs are so strong that he can leg press 3 tons. And it's not just his legs that are strong, his upper half possesses superhuman strength as well. His arms can lift about 1 ton. He also has flexible bone structure, regenerative healing factor, infrared vision, and the best part, his 30-foot long tongue can also act as a whip. And it can secrete venom that can give him mind control over your body, and his saliva is acid as well. Number 5, Wither. Making his first appearance in New Mutants Volume 2, Issue 3, Kevin Ford grew up thinking that he was cursed, or he was the most unlucky person ever, one or the two. See, his mutant powers started manifesting, and then he noticed it first in his plants, and then he noticed it in his clothes, and then he noticed it in people. So what would happen is his plants would wither. They would wither and they would die. And then his clothes were starting to decay as well. So once his father figures out this mutation, he tries to calm him down, but coming into contact with him, obviously the inevitable happens. He sees the world in this lifeless or decaying way now. See, it's part of her. She looks like she can take out any bad guy, like she looks like an alien. So she possesses the powers of both of her parents. She can blast off energy bolts, she can climb walls, but what makes her even more powerful is that she has the ability to possess others for 12 hours or 1 lunar cycle. But once that timer is up, the victim is just completely out of it for 24 hours, just comatose. This super offspring packs a super punch, that's for sure. Number 3, Tattoo. Christine Cord made her comic book debut in the New X-Men issue 126. She was a student of the Xavier Institute, and she's known as Tattoo, well, because her mutation allows her to display messages or designs on her skin, and she can phase through matter, which is also kind of fun. She's pretty awesome. I mean, when you first think of her, you may just think of the skin messages and be like, oh, whatever, maybe she's a spy, maybe she can be like, send help and then use her skin. Cool, that's good. But check this out. Tattoo actually phased her hand into Cyclops' head once and told him that if she becomes solid, he would not survive to see the end of it. How awesome is that? But she sadly lost her powers during the events of M-Day, but if you ever ran into Christine again, she would probably surprise you with her new ability. When she was released from jail, she joined the New Warriors and was given her own Stiltman armor, becoming Longstrike. So bam! 2 and 1. Talk about underrated. Number 2, Banshee. The Screaming Banshee. Okay, he made his first appearance in X-Men issue 28. Sean Cassidy was born as the heir to the castle and estate of Cassidy Keep, Ireland. Now, Professor Xavier asked him to join the X-Men at the same time as Thunderbird, and they both stayed as members of the new X-Men. Now, he went on to train the new generation of X-Men and Generation X, but he sadly lost his life during Deadly Genesis when he was trying to stop Blackbird from crashing when it was taken over. So when you think of an X-Men who screams so loud he can hurt people, it's impressive on its own, sure, but his screams are actually stronger than we really think. His screams can actually break through an inch of steel. And with these wings that Professor X developed for him, he's able to harness this power and use his screams as energy to help him fly. So he can do so much more with his voice as well. He can tighten the sound waves around himself to make a sonic shield, and he can influence your subconscious by changing the tones and vibrations of his voice. He can literally change your mind. How awesome is that? What do you mean you want a divorce? And finally, number 1, we have my favorite on the list, Bailey Hoskins. Okay, I have to talk about this poor kid. Okay, strongest X-Men you wouldn't expect? Yeah, that is for sure Bailey Hoskins. The only appearance of this kid is in the 2016 miniseries X-Men, Worst X-Man Ever, which is a pretty cruel name. He was a student at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, and his power is pretty spectacular. He can self-detonate, he can make himself explode, and you would never expect it just by looking at him. I mean, come on. He reminds me of Hogarth from the Iron Giant. He's such a cute kid. The thing is, he can only use this fantastic ability once. And his last issue in the comics was X-Men Worst X-Man Ever, issue 5.
Number 10, Our Man. Now, I'm sure we can all name a handful of heroes with super strength, but some heroes just aren't lucky enough to be born with it, or just haven't been under the right circumstances to gain them. However, in the DC universe, there is actually a pill that you can take to make yourself stronger, faster, more durable, and just more adaptable for exactly 1 hour called Miraclo. Put a little more scientifically, the active ingredient in Miraclo is a special form of phosphorus, which bonds temporarily with the ATP in muscle cells to create an adenosine quad phosphate, which energizes the cells. With this pill, the vigilante known as Our Man was able to fight crime. Now, there have been 2 men that have taken up the Our Man mantle, so let's just briefly go over both of them. Rex Tyler was the original Our Man and the scientist who actually created Miraclo. He used it to fight against crime during the Golden Age. Despite being an average human in every way, he was able to fight alongside the Justice Society and the freedom fighters thanks to this drug. And then his son Richard Tyler took up the mantle after his father's retirement, taking the Miraclo pills against his father's wishes in order to save Rex and then his fellow Justice Society members as well. Now, despite his strength, Our Man was never anything close to the powerhouse like Superman. Honestly, he wasn't even ever the strongest member of his own team, but he sure could throw a punch in that 1 hour window, and that is why he's on this list today. Check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1940's Adventure Comics number 48. Number 9, Tanga. A pretty obscure character in the DC universe, so don't feel too bad if you're not familiar with her. Tanga is a cosmic being whose only real goal is to search for simple pleasures throughout the cosmos, which is just super wholesome, and I love it. She was introduced to us in the comic miniseries World Worlds by Kevin Maguire, and though she talks about having met Lobo and other members of the Green Lantern Corps before, we've never actually seen the character interact with anyone else, making us wonder if she's just making it all up. Although we don't know much about her abilities or powers, in terms of raw power, she certainly deserves her spot on this list today. When we first met her, she starts out as the guardian of the planet Chimera, and spends her time defeating monsters to protect the people there. She doesn't know her own strength though, which means she lacks the fine control necessary to master her powers, whatever they may be. Check her out for yourself in her first appearance in 2011's Weird Worlds Volume 2, Number 1. Number 8, Ultra Boy. In the far future of the 30th and 31st century, young heroes from around the universe banded together to form the Legion of Superheroes. We know about members like Cosmic Boy, Lightning Lad, Saturn Girl, and Brainiac 5, but when the team needs some muscle, they call upon Jonah of Rimbor, more commonly known as the superhero powerhouse Ultra Boy. Out of all the Legionnaires with all their different powers, he is one of the strongest characters on the team. While many of these characters use the natural abilities of the race to protect the citizens of the United Planets, Ultra Boy received his powers from exposure to radiation thanks to prolonged exposure to an energy beast. He has been shown to have all the same abilities as Superman, but he is so low on this list today because he can only use one of those powers at a time. He has the strength to rival the Man of Steel himself, but given the limitation of his abilities, Ultra Boy has a huge weakness. However, despite this, he remains one of the most useful members of the team. Check out Ultra Boy for yourself in his first appearance in 1962 Superboy number 98. Number 7. Loose Cannon. Back in the early 1990s, DC Comics used the Bloodlines crossover as an excuse to create a ton of new superheroes and villains. These new bloods were given powers when alien parasites attacked them, resulting in the creation of the superhero team, the Blood Pack, and heroes like Hitman, Gunfire, and many others. Eager to have its own version of the Hulk, DC introduced the character Loose Cannon, who was a cop by the name of Eddie Walker before he gained incredible superpowers that made him seem destined for the spotlight. Similar to the Hulk, Eddie takes on a massive form when he gets angry. However, unlike his counterpart, Loose Cannon has several stages to its transformation. When he initially gets angry, his skin turns blue, but as he gets madder, it changes color. The next stage is purple, followed by red, until finally his skin is completely ghost white to match the white, hot rage he feels inside. In his most powerful form, Loose Cannon becomes uncontrollable and is unable to put together a coherent thought, which is absolutely terrifying because we have seen what characters like that can do. Check out this colorful beast of a hero for yourself in his first appearance in 1993's Action Comics Annual number 5. Number 6. Damage. Were you hoping for back-to-back DC Hulk clones on this list today? Well, I hope so, because that is pretty much what Damage is. In an attempt to create its own superpowered soldiers, the military conducted tests using dark matter energy left over from the Dark Knight's Metal event. The result was Ethan Avery, who gained the ability to transform into a giant, superpowered form for exactly 1 hour. Just how strong is Damage? Well, it's been heavily implied that he is much stronger than Superman himself. Even given just 1 hour, the monster has proven able to make easy work of modern military weaponry like tanks and aircrafts, and on top of that, he has defeated the Suicide Squad, Poison Ivy, and even proved to be too much for someone like Wonder Woman to handle. After the two fought in the streets and Diana took a serious beating, she told Batman and Superman that Damage could be the strongest opponent she has ever faced, which would actually include the Man of Steel himself. Hopefully one day we get a fight between the two so we can see just how much stronger he is than Superman. Give Damage's story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 2017's Dark Days of the Casting, number 1. Number 5. Atom Smasher. Now, most superheroes with increased strength are disproportionately sized compared to the insane abilities that they're shown to have. Like, sure, Superman can lift an entire building over his head, but does he really look like a dude who can practically do anything he sets his mind to? Yeah, that's what I thought. Frequent Justice Society member Al Rothstein changes that up a bit because he has the ability to grow in size and can alter his density and strength directly proportional to that size, meaning if he's 60 feet tall, he is going to have the abilities a human being would have if they were that size. Even at his normal height of 7'6", Atom Smasher has been shown to be a formidable foe for anyone who crosses his path. He's capable of just plucking a jet plane out of the sky with ease, and can compete with just about any other superpowered person that comes to mind. Atom Smasher has put up a fight against the likes of Power Girl, Solomon Grundy, Martian Manhunter, Black Adam, and even fought off the Spectre once. Al also took the young hero Grant Emerson, aka the other Damage, under his wing while the kid was trying to figure out himself, and even he, with his own super strength, couldn't match up to Atom Smasher, who easily pinned him down with one hand and just straight up knocked him out. Check out Atom Smasher's ridiculous strength for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1983's All-Star Squadron number 25. Number 4. Infinity Man. Now, the identity of Infinity Man varies, but regardless of who is underneath that mask, he is always one of the most powerful warriors of the members of New Genesis. There have been at least 3 Infinity Men throughout DC Comics, the first being Astor, who passed on his powers to Drax, the older brother of Darkseid. And then the third is the primer incarnation of the character named Isaiah, who is the combined form of all of the Forever People. This most recent version of the character is one half of High Father, after the leader of New Genesis had gone to the Source Wall seeking answers for the war between him and Darkseid, and found the compassionate half of himself stripped away completely. This kinder and compassionate half is the one that became Infinity Man, and thanks to his new god physiology, he possesses basically all the abilities of Darkseid and the other new gods, and uses his powers for good. The original Infinity Man was created by the legendary Jack Kirby. Check out the original incarnations in 1971's Forever People number 1, or take a look at the new 52 Infinity Man in 2014's Infinity Man and the Forever People number 2. Number 3. Big Barta. The new gods of New Genesis and Apocalypse are some of the most powerful cosmic entities in the universe. Now, they may all pale in comparison to the likes of Darkseid, but each has their own levels of strength and unique abilities. One of the most powerful among these new gods is Big Barta, who was trained at a young age to be a member and eventual leader of Darkseid's elite warriors, the Female Furies. She eventually rebelled against her controllers, escaped Apocalypse, and joined the New Genesis. Big Barta and Mr. Miracle are now married and living happily together on Earth, but that does not mean that they shy away from a fight when they have to. Over the years, Big Barta has shown herself to be one of the fiercest warriors in the DC universe, as her strength and fighting skills rival the abilities of Wonder Woman. She can overpower her former teammates and has defeated the likes of Knockout and Calabac in one-on-one combat. Her husband may be remembered as the world's greatest escape artist, but it's really Barta who holds the power in this relationship. In the past, Big Barta had served under the Justice League of America, proving that she can stand side by side with the world's greatest heroes, but sadly she dies at the hands of Infinity Man. However, at the end of Final Crisis, she is seen with a newborn Regenesis, so we're all kinda confused as to what's going on with her now. Give her story a read for yourself, starting with her first appearance all the way back in 1971's Mr. Miracle, number 4. Number 2, Orion. The biological son of the villainous Darkseid, Orion is an elite-level warrior and seems to be the only other new god who can actually physically harm Darkseid in any meaningful way. Representative of the constant struggle of nature and nurture, Orion struggles to control his rage and inner brutal nature, but he's still considered to be one of the greatest and most powerful allies of New Genesis. Orion also has the benefit of his Astro Harness, capable of harnessing energy directly from the source itself, that he calls the Astro Force. On multiple occasions, he is shown to be as strong as the likes of Superman and Wonder Woman, and this was further proven with the biggest achievement he has on his resume: the fact that he was actually the one who finally took out Darkseid himself. With the elimination of the new gods in the lead up to Final Crisis, the final 2 members of this cosmic race of gods fought it out in the streets of Earth. Orion finally dug deep in himself and became the monster he had always tried to stop himself from being, and managed to battle Darkseid to a standstill. However, that all changed when the son destroyed the father, and he ripped out Darkseid's heart directly out of his body in just one foul swoop. He was unfortunately killed during Final Crisis though with a Radion bullet. However, he was resurrected later on Earth alongside the rest of the new gods. Check out Darkseid's sons for yourself in his first appearance all the way back in 1971's New Gods, number 1. And number 1, the Spectre. The most powerful being in the DC universe by far has to be the Spectre. As God's spirit of vengeance, he is blessed with all sorts of powerful magical abilities, but it's his raw strength that really sets him apart from everyone else. The power of the Spectre is so great that it actually needs a human host in order to be kept in check. Jim Corrigan, Hal Jordan, and Crispus Allen have each taken control of the spirit of vengeance in order to enact his own version of justice onto the world. Over the years, we've seen the Spectre's amazing abilities, like how he's essentially invulnerable to all physical attacks, unless you're Batman. That one time Spectre allowed him to hurt him. That was a weird sort of storyline, I don't know. This magical entity also has the ability to take out the entire magical community in one fist fight at a time. We're talking defeating Shazam with literally just one punch to the face. He's also seen capable of wrangling the Red Lantern avatar of rage known as the Butcher with just his bare hands. His most impressive feat though would have to be the time he engaged the Anti-Monitor in hand-to-hand combat and was able to overpower him for control over all of creation. The heroes needed his power in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and he delivered in a very big way, saving all of reality from the brink. Check out this all-powerful being for yourself in its first appearance in 1940's More Fun Comics, number 52. Number 10, Animal Man. Buddy Baker was once a punk rocker who was chosen to be the protector of the Red, aka the Web of Life, aka the morphogenetic field, which, put simply, is the force that binds all living things on Earth together. From then on, Buddy discovered that he was able to absorb the abilities of any animal anytime he was in the presence of it, and he could summon those abilities at will, using them to fight crime and whatnot. These abilities include the strength of a T-Rex, the flight of a bird, the speed of an ant, the sonic blast of a pistol shrimp, the stench of a skunk, and just a whole lot more. Donning his iconic orange and blue costume and calling himself Animal Man, Buddy has teamed up with the Forgotten Heroes and the Justice League on multiple occasions to help take down Vandal Savage, Queen Bee, the Time Commander, and more. Now, the biggest struggle in Buddy's life, however, is that he is both a family man and a superhero, and he often finds it pretty hard to strike a balance between the two. Check out Animal Man for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1965's Strange Adventures number 180, or feel free to skip ahead to his Prime Earth counterpart, starting with 2011's Flashpoint Volume 2, number 5. Number 9, Gotham Girl. Clara Clover, aka Gotham Girl, was half of the metahuman crime fighter duo that fought to protect Gotham City. Now, it's not really explained how or when, but Gotham Girl received her powers after purchasing a set of metahuman powers that are now tied to her life force, and the strength of her powers is determined by how much life force she is willing to sacrifice to use them, meaning more life force equals crazy strong powers. However, this was later resolved when Batman exposed her to some platinum kryptonite. These powers include superhuman strength and stamina, flight, invulnerability, and some good old-fashioned heat vision. She made her debut in Gotham alongside her brother by helping Batman save a plane that was hijacked by the Cobra cult, and at that point Batman decided to take them both under his wing to train them as better heroes. After the death of her brother, she had a ton of trouble coping, but thankfully Batman was there to help her through it by letting her in on his own struggles in his own life. The worst thing she's ever done though that makes me even question if she's a hero was when she revealed to have been working alongside Bane, completely physically and emotionally breaking Batman. Check her out for yourself, starting with 2016's DCU Rebirth number 1. Number 8, Captain Marvel Jr. Now, it's no secret that superhero comics love bringing in a sidekick every now and then. After Batman got Robin in 1940, Captain Marvel was given Captain Marvel Jr. just a year later, and as obscure as he might be compared to more famous sidekicks, he was known well enough by Elvis Presley that the King himself decided to model his onstage costumes after Captain Marvel Jr. Just as the Wizard imbued Billy Batson with the power of Shazam, the Captain imparted a portion of his powers to Freddy while he lay dying because of an accident that he caused. Now, by saying the words Captain Marvel out loud, he gained all of the abilities that the original Captain has, just to a slightly lesser degree. In his human form, Freddy is forced to walk with a crutch due to a bad left leg, but as Captain Marvel Jr., he has full capabilities of his body, and then some. Now, that is just the original CMJ who debuted in 1941's Wiz Comics number 25. The Freddie Freeman that debuted in DC's The Power of Shazam number 3 also has a pretty similar origin, however his powers were granted him directly from the Six Gods as opposed to getting them from Shazam, making him their direct champion. As a member of the Teen Titans, Justice League of America, and the new Young Justice, Freddy has helped take down some serious baddies, however his powers were robbed from him by Osiris, and since then, he has not been able to take the form of Captain Marvel Jr. Check out Freddie Freeman for yourself and let me know what you think of him in the comments below. Number 7, Plastic Man. Originally a criminal who went by the name Eel O'Brien, Patrick O'Brien gained his malleable body after being shot and exposed to an unknown acid. When he woke up, he discovered that his entire body was elastic, and it took him a while to get the hang of it, but eventually he was able to learn how to use his powers to his advantage. Partnered up with Woozy Winks, the two stopped an attempted robbery, and from that point on, Patrick became known as the hero Plastic Man. Now, not only can Plastic Man stretch himself at will, he can also increase or decrease his size, posing as a tiny little action figure or growing to the size of a building, and he can increase his own strength by growing or adding muscle mass to his body, and he can even shapeshift, taking the form of basically anything that is impossible for humans to achieve without breaking every bone in their body. As an occasional member of the Justice League, Plastic Man not only became good friends with Batman, but he helped take down Clayface, Dr. Psycho, and played a rather large role during the Blackest Night storyline, fighting all of these zombified heroes and seemingly dying in the process. Check out his entire story for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1988 Secret Origins Volume 2, number 30, or feel free to skip ahead to his Prime Earth counterpart story, starting with 2011's Justice League International Volume 3, number 1.
And at 6, Craven the Hunter. Karanoff found that he had a great talent for finding employment in Kenya, Africa. Karanoff began his career using the typical tools of the hunter, but over time he developed a preference to take down large animals with his bare hands. So, you know, already a psycho in the making. After meeting a voodoo witch doctor named Calypso, Karanoff took a herbal potion which enhanced his physical powers and gave him strength, speed, and senses to match a jungle cat. The potion also extended his life greatly, keeping his health and vitality for years to come. At some point, the notion of big game hunting became a bore to the hunter, so his associate Chameleon, who was later revealed to be his half-brother, proposed to Craven that he hunt Spiderman, and thus gave Craven a new purpose in life. Craven gained additional powers by drinking more rare and exotic jungle elixirs given to him by his voodoo priestess lover Calypso. These elixirs gave him the strength and speed of a savage beast, and all the better to catch Spider-Man with, right? Despite being assisted by the Chameleon, his scheme failed and he was deported from the US, but he would definitely come back. Halfway through into number 5, Toxin. Born from Carnage as the 1000th symbiote in its lineage, Toxin was feared to be the strongest and most dangerous of their race by both Venom and Carnage. Shortly after being born, the symbiote united with police officer Pat Mulligan. Years later, the symbiote was removed from Mulligan by Blackheart, who beat Pat Mulligan to death in a gutter. With the help of Venom, Jack-o'-lantern took it to its boss, Crime Master. Crime Master, though, found the perfect host in Eddie Brock, who he forced to become Toxin's host. You know, Eddie Brock, the former host of Venom. After bonding with Eddie, Toxin took over its host and worked with the Savage Six, attacking its grandfather symbiote Venom. And with Toxin seemingly coming to the big screen in the future, being introduced in Let There Be Carnage, okay, well, Pat Mulligan was introduced, and then he had some like freaky thing happen with his eyes near the end of the movie, but still, it's very close to it. This guy is also just a freaking freak, okay? He can grow fangs and claws when he's angry. It just happens. It's not something that he thinks of, it just happens. Something that Venom and Carnage are unable to do. However, Toxin is also unable to be tracked by Venom or Carnage, as well as being immune to Spider-Man's spider sense. So this dude is hella off the radar, which only makes things freakier. And in 4, Antivenom. When Eddie Brock separated from the Venom symbiote, traces of it were still left in his body. Later though, suffering from cancer, Brock started working as a volunteer in the Feast Center. Martin Lee, the founder of Feast, and the alter ego of the supervillain Mr. Negative, used his powers to cure Eddie's cancer. But in the process, Lee accidentally infused the remnants of the symbiote in Eddie's bloodstream with his power, and fused them to his white blood cells, creating a new hybrid symbiote which manifested when the Venom symbiote attempted to leave its then current host Matt Gargan and return to Eddie. This new symbiote, dubbed Antivenom by Eddie, demonstrated tremendous healing powers and other powers that differ from the Venom symbiote, as well as having an inverted color scheme, or a negative color scheme, if you will, such as producing antibodies that can cure any known disease and removing any other impurities within a human body. Unlike other symbiotes though, this symbiote is completely mindless, and Eddie Brock is in full control of its actions. This symbiote was destroyed when it was used as the cure for the spider virus, which had turned various characters into human spider hybrids. However, it was remade as Agent Antivenom after Flash Thompson ended up getting soaked with Antivenom serum. That's a whole other story. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, Shathra. An inhabitant of the astral plane, Shathra is the spider wasp to Peter Parker's spider. She learned of Spider-Man when he strayed from the safe path during a visit to the astral plane to locate the interdimensional kidnapper known as the Shade. Shathra immediately realized Spider-Man's true nature and determined that he would make the perfect meal for her hungry young hatchlings. Great! First introduced in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2 number 46 in 2002, Shathra quickly followed Spider-Man's scent back to Earth. She engaged Spider-Man in a battle that demonstrated her clearly superior speed and strength, but Spider-Man was able to use his superior knowledge of New York City to find temporary escape. But of course he only knew that it was a matter of time before Shathra would locate him once more. Shathra turned the game in a new direction though, changing to a human form and adopting the name Sharon Keller. And she went on TV to pose as Spider-Man's jitted lover. She went on TV and revealed a series of convincing and humiliating details, and of course this made Mary Jane upset. So, spurred on by Mary Jane's distress, Peter rose to the taunt. He gatecrashed the studio interview and attacked Sharon Keller in full view of, live TV. Shathra reverted to her Spider-Wasp form, but her gambit had achieved its goal of pushing Spider-Man to act on pure instinct, which ended up making him the prey, because they were at their actual primordial positions. He was the prey, she was the hunter because she's the Spider-Wasp. You get it, you get it. But ultimately, in at number 2, Chameleon. Being the first villain Spider-Man ever faced way back in Amazing Spider-Man number 1 from 1963 and my costume from yesterday, I think that Chameleon is a more underrated villain than he should be. Being able to look like anyone at any time is pretty damn overpowered, especially when you can use it to look like Spider-Man and even use suction cups to stick to walls, even if it's slightly unrealistic. This character is especially powerful when he has superpowers, like in the 90s animated Spider-Man series, where after Alistair Smythe infused him with a techno-organic virus, could simply look at you and end up transforming into you. It's actually insanely overpowered when you look at it like that, since he can also transform his clothes. He could be fleeing from Spider-Man and turn the corner and then be anyone, so it's certainly someone to fear, unless they use the original version who has to use disguises and makeup to look like anyone they want, since that process takes time and can't be turned on and off. And finally, in at number 1, the Spot. As a scientist working for the Kingpin, Dr. Owen was assigned to reproduce the radiation levels of the Vigilante cloak to find a way to artificially mimic his powers. Working late one night, he succeeded, creating a solid black circular portal. In doing so, however, the drain on the city's power became so great that a blackout washed over the city, causing the portal to shimmer and destabilize. Fearful of losing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Owen stepped into it, and the power shortage caused the portal to send him into a different dimension, a place of half darkness and half light. When Owen emerged back into his lab, his body had undergone a radical transformation. The portals from the other dimension had adhered to his skin, covering him with black spots from head to toe. The reason this is absolutely terrifying, and is the most overpowered villain you wouldn't expect, is because he now had the ability to control these portals. If the man wanted to decapitate you, he easily could. Just close a portal at any part of your body, and then boom, amputation. Around your neck, you're dead. It's horrifying. Spider-Man in the 90s cartoon would use these portals to land a punch on Own, but if Own just decided to close it or he lost his focus to keep them open, that would have been real bad. Just stay away from this guy, straight up. Don't even try to fight him.
Number 10, Molan. Molan is the original Fantastic Four villain. He's where their fight with evil all began back in issue number 1 of the Fantastic Four series. While Molan's radar sense might not be as impressive and may not quite rival that of Daredevil's enhanced senses, Harvey Elder is also a super genius who generally has an army of monstrous creatures at his back, whether it be the Moloids or the creatures of Monster Isle. Either way, they generally tend to be fearsome and often deviant related, oddly enough. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, please go check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Number 9, TVA, also known as the Time Variance Authority. This power time regulating and maintaining order has also served as a Fantastic Four villain in the past. This was because the Fantastic Four were in essence kind of charged with breaking some laws of time, creating some temporal problems, if you will. The Time Variance Authority, watching and governing over time as they do to ensure minimal temporal disruptions, are considered to be quite powerful in the Marvel multiverse. Although they aren't the only ones that try to rule over time, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later, perhaps. Number 8, Skrulls. It feels weird ranking the Skrulls so low on this list, considering, they're a whole group, a whole cosmic empire of people. And they aren't just any old alien race either in the Marvel universe. The Skrulls are known for being one of the most capable and at times fearsome races. If you happen to have to go up against them, that is. Which is exactly what happened to begin with in Fantastic Four issue number 2, the second issue ever of the series, where the most fantastic first family of Marvel were pitted up against a Skrull invasion. Yep, the Skrulls wanted to invade Earth. Well, this would of course eventually happen. This time around, it only took the Fantastic Four to kind of dissuade the Skrulls from invading Earth and kind of convincing them it wasn't really a great idea, at least not right now. They would return, and for a long time in the comics would actually act as a recurring enemy to the Fantastic Four family, until now when a Skrull child, Nankala, would actually end up adopted into the family, becoming the adopted daughter of Ben Grimm and Alicia Masters Grimm following the events of Empire. Things really have come full circle now. Number 7, Impossible Man. Impossible Man has to be one of the weirdest Fantastic Four villains out there, and yet somehow he also happens to be one of the most powerful. He is a shapeshifter, but unlike the Skrulls, he hails from an alien race that is less well known over at Marvel Comics, especially as Impossible Man doesn't appear as frequently and hasn't appeared as recently either as the Skrulls. I think the last time we saw Impossible Man was in like 2013, so it's been a minute. So who is he? Impossible Man is an alien belonging to the race known as the Papapians. He can transform into almost anything and can even split himself into multiple parts. In fact, this is how Papapians reproduce. He appeared as early as issue number 11 of the Fantastic Four and hails, like all Papapians, from the 10th galaxy. In terms of presentation, he's somewhat similar to Superman's own villainous, overpowered nuisance, Mr. Mxyzptlk. Number 6, Neymar the Submariner. One of the things Neymar is most well known for is his rivalry with the Fantastic Four. While Neymar existed in the comics way before the Fantastic Four were ever introduced, he ended up as one of their first enemies in their own comic, appearing as early as issue number 4 in that original series. Here, Neymar becomes infatuated with Sue Storm and attempts to kidnap her, stealing her away from the team. In this way, Neymar would always remain as kind of a complex individual when it came to his relationship with the Fantastic Four. While he has acted as a major villain in the comics to them before and to others, he's also provided aid to the team and to others, acting as a hero and an ally. In fact, during King in Black, Neymar was even called upon by Sue to help battle Null and journey to the depths to reconnect with the eldritch empowered villains known as the Black Tide. Number 5, Galactus. Galactus is another super iconic Fantastic Four villain, especially considering the team's relationship and ties to Galactus' herald, the Silver Surfer. One of his heralds, at least anyways. Galactus is known as a planet devourer and is a massive cosmic being brimming with intense cosmic energy. It's also been said that his existence is one of the universe's constants, or at least one iteration of the universe and Marvel multiverse. because yeah, he currently isn't around. At one point, even Franklin Richards though does become an alternate version of Galactus in a future. Currently in the comics, Galactus is no more though, having been defeated and permanently killed by Thor during his confrontation with the Black Winter, with Galactus' helm being used as Thor's new throne room. So it just goes to show, even some of the most giant of villains can fall, and fall he has. And just because you're the biggest and baddest, it doesn't always mean that you're the most powerful. Number 4, Molecule Man. Molecule Man was once one of the most powerful opponents and enemies of the Fantastic Four, and many other heroes in the Marvel Multiverse as well. Initially, the only way the Fantastic Four could first defeat him was by Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, discovering a weakness of Molecule Man's, that Owen Reese's Molecule Man could not manipulate the molecules of living things, organic matter. But over time, even this rule would change and be broken. It would be revealed that this limitation was not actually real, but merely one imposed on Owen by himself, having placed mental blocks in the way that made him believe he could not manipulate organic matter. He's been shown to have overcome this mental block for a time, and at that point, he was likely one of the most powerful beings in all of the Marvel Multiverse. Or I guess I should say from that point on, because even up until the end of Molecule Man, I would say he was one of the most powerful beings that we had. Number 3, the Griver at the end of all things. The Griver at the end of all things was someone who proved their power almost instantly in the comics. Like, as soon as they appeared, they were like, this is where I am on the ladder of power. A kind of one-up villain, if you will. She was the one who managed to defeat Molecule Man for good, killing him during his time adventuring with the Fantastic Four when he aimed to fix the multiverse with Reed Richards, Franklin Richards, and of course the rest of the FF. And the Griver actually killed Molecule Man apparently like super dead. Like, normally Owen Reese can kind of come back, but apparently this is like a death you can't come back from, if you will. The Griver at the end of all things described herself as basically being inevitable, saying that her purpose was to watch as everything from the edge of eternity died and witness and mourn its passing. We haven't seen her since then, I don't think, but she seemed pretty cool and she did a pretty crazy thing, so I feel like I'd be remiss to not mention her. Number 2, Kang the Conqueror. Kang the Conqueror might be better known for being an Avengers villain, but they aren't the only ones who have tangled with the time-traveling villain. Kang is also a villain intrinsically tied to the Fantastic Four via the Richards family, with it even being believed that Kang may be a future descendant of Reed Richards, with his name being Nathaniel Richards in his initial iteration before he evolves a few times to eventually become Kang. And even if he isn't related to Reed, he's also rumored to be related alternatively to another, even more powerful and iconic villain of the FF. As we've seen in the comics, while 2 Kangs may stand a chance against this villain, who takes our number 1 spot, 1 Kang is likely not enough. Who is the number 1? Who is the person that could also be related to Kang? Number 1, Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom definitely has to be one of the most powerful foes of the Fantastic Four, if not the most powerful, which is why I had to give him our top spot. And he's also known for being one of the most iconic villains of the Fantastic Four as well. Doom, while seemingly just a man in a metal suit, is actually much more than that. He's a genius, a political powerhouse, sometimes a gentleman, and is also extremely gifted in the art of magic. He traveled back in time to train with former pupil of Merlin himself, Morgan Le Fay, also known for her immense magical power in the Marvel Universe. Doom has been powerful enough to even be considered a potential candidate for the role of Sorcerer Supreme, and when acting as a hero, has shown the strength of his will and his might, being bold enough to save the Marvel Multiverse in the events leading up to Secret Wars, and becoming God Emperor Doom of his own battle world during that event, and being brave enough to take on the role of hero Iron Man after Tony Stark was left comatose following the events of Civil War II, becoming known editorially as Infamous Iron Man.
Number 10, Dazzler. Starting off our list today, we have Allison Blair, a mutant who dreamed of becoming a singer one day, but unfortunately, her dad wasn't too on board with that. She manifested her powers one day while performing at a junior high dance, blinding everyone in sight minus herself. If you're not familiar with this character, then you're probably a little confused, so let me explain. Allison possesses some pretty cool abilities known as sound conversion and light projection. Sound conversion allows her to absorb these sounds around her and either release them back out in a big energy blast, or use them for a makeshift echolocation that has proved to be pretty effective if I do say so myself. And then light projection allows her to control the energy levels of the outer electron shells of her body in such a way that causes the release of photons. And by doing this, she can blind her opponents, shoot lasers, photon blasts, create holograms, and so much more. Now, aside from these two powers, she also seems to be basically immortal because she has this mysterious resurrection factor that prevents her from dying by any normal means. Check out her story for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 1980's X-Men number 130. Number 9, Starbrand. The star brand may be an object, but were you aware that there is also a hero that goes by that name as well? On Earth 148,611, Ken Connell received the star brand from a mysterious old man he met in the woods. With the star brand equipped, he gained pretty much limitless powers, including super strength, flight, near invulnerability, and a couple more. Ken strived to use his powers for good, but often was thwarted by his own shortcomings and the harsh realities of the real world. But that didn't stop him, and eventually he decided to become a much more traditional superhero by donning the spandex suit and mask. Despite his intelligence, Ken was never really able to harness the full power of the star brand because he lacked the imagination and curiosity needed. However, that didn't stop him from causing some serious damage. Literally. After learning the supposed origins of the star brand, he killed hundreds of people at a comic book convention and unintentionally destroyed all of Pittsburgh, leading him to believe that he might be better off without his powers, and I think we all kind of agree. Give his story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1986's star brand, number 1. Number 8, Neymar. The first Marvel characters to have a history that spawns over 70 years of publication, Neymar Mackenzie, aka the Submariner, is certainly a strong and resourceful character in the Marvel Universe. Thanks to his unique genetic makeup being a human/Atlantean/mutant hybrid, he possesses a pretty crazy arsenal of powers, including super strength, speed, stamina, and durability, flight, healing, and hydrokinesis. Neymar is stronger and tougher than most any human or Atlantean. He can go toe-to-toe with some of the strongest beings on Earth and come out unscathed, especially when underwater or covered in water, which increases his strength by extreme degrees. Neymar has telepathic abilities from his Atlantean heritage that allows him to communicate and command not only sea life, but also fellow Atlantean soldiers, if need be. Neymar also has a much longer lifespan than a human and shows very little signs of aging despite being born many decades ago. We've seen Neymar as a member of the X-Men Red Team, the Defenders of the Deep, the Invaders, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and that's not even half of the team that he's been on. Like I said, he's been around for a very long time. Now, if you're not familiar with this character, then you are truly missing out, so check him out in his first appearance in 1939's Motion Picture Funnies Weekly, number 1. Number 7, Spectre. Monica Rambeau gained her powers one day while working for the New Orleans Harbor Police when she was exposed to and bombarded by extra-dimensional energy. Now classified as an alpha-level threat, she uses her newfound energy form to create energy blasts, alter her appearance, fly, and just a whole lot more. Given the name Captain Marvel by the media, she became friends with many superpowered folks early on and actually served as an Avenger for a period of time, becoming its leader at one point. However, she was forced to step down from the group after many injuries. Out of respect for Genus Vell, the son of the original Captain Marvel, she changed her name to Photon so that he could take up the mantle and carry on his father's legacy. Fast forward a little bit past her time with the Mighty Avengers, we see Monica, now known as Spectrum, join the newly formed Ultimates. However, after the second superhuman civil war, the team was disbanded by the government because of the way they dealt with conflict. They did later reassemble to investigate Eternity at the request of Galactus, and eventually the team was combined into Alpha Flight, and they were working to keep people safe to this day. If you want to know more about Monica's origin story, check her out in her first appearance in 1982's Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16. Number 6, Legion. David Haller, son of Charles Xavier, who Charles actually didn't know about until he founded the New Mutants. Born a mutant, David developed his powers after his home was invaded and his stepfather was killed right in front of him. He woke the latent psionic powers within himself and incinerated the brains of the assassins. However, there was a major drawback to this power. David formed a telepathic bond with his victims, experiencing their emotions and thoughts as they died, and this traumatized him and still seems to affect him to this day. Interestingly enough, David is capable of creating new mutations and powers all the time, and in order to cope with that immense power, he creates new personalities/personas to govern them. Some of the most well-known being personality number 5, the Legion, personality 3, Jack Wayne, personality 4, Cindy, and of course personality 2, Jamel Karami, who attempted to restructure David's psyche into his own image. Now you're probably thinking he's a little low on this list considering he has at least 200 plus powers at his disposal, and you would be absolutely right. But he is slightly below average in just about everything else, and also the fact that his dissociative personality disorder hindered him greatly. Check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1985's New Mutants number 26, and let me know if you agree with the placement on this list today in the comments below. Number 5. Clayton Cortez was a Marine who was sold off to Dr. Alva, the head of the Weapon X Batch 8 division, focused on creating some Hulk Wolverine hybrids. Alva left more of Cortez's brain in with the intention to better train him and discipline him, and from there Weapon H was born. As a newly created mutant/gamma mutate cyborg, he has the DNA of Wolverine, the Hulk, and a multitude of other superpowered beings grafted to him. Not to mention his bones have been bonded with adamantium. He possesses the ability to change back and forth between his human and Hulk form, and he has retractable bone claws, projectile claws, and even extendable bone claws as well. Basically, Cortez is an advanced Wolverine with the powers of the Hulk. We've seen him easily take down the Hulk, the Wendigo, and a few more of our other favorite heroes and villains. According to Dr. Alba herself, it is said that Weapon H could easily kill every living being on Earth, and seriously, I believe her. Check him out for yourself, starting with 2017's Totally Awesome Hulk, number 21. Number 4, Sync. Everett Thomas was a mutant from Missouri possessing an ability known as synchronicity. This ability allows him to quote-unquote be in sync with the other superhumans in his immediate vicinity, and thanks to this he is able to gain and use whatever powers they have. This is all done through the aura that he emits, as it is what absorbs the energy around him. After the Phalanx crisis, Everett and the other youths were all relocated to the Massachusetts Academy, where they were trained to use their powers, received a formal education, and acted as the new generation of X-Men known as Generation X. He was briefly turned into a parasitic mutant by the team's arch-nemesis Emplet, who wanted to destroy Sync's happy family life. Under Emplet's influence, Sync menaced his family and friends until M, who he had difficulty syncing with, was able to defeat him. Skip ahead a bit and we see Sync find a bomb, and there were human students nearby. Everett synced with the nearest mutant, Monet. However, Monet was too far away, so he only received a portion of her powers, which happened to be her super strength. Using all of his might, he threw the human kids out the window, saving them from the explosion, but sadly, he was not able to save himself, dying to save his human peers. He does come back though, so don't worry. Check him out for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1994's X-Men Volume 2, number 36. Number 3, Rogue. Easily one of the most well-known X-Men out there, Rogue is a mutant that was born with an incredible ability, albeit a harmful and involuntary one. She has the ability to absorb the powers, energy, memories, knowledge, talents, personality, and physical abilities of another human being, be them mutant or not, through physical skin-to-skin contact. This transfer is usually temporary, lasting for a period of time relative to how long contact was maintained, but the transfer may become permanent in certain cases, like how it seems she still has the powers of Wonder Man, or how she permanently absorbed Ms. Marvel and Sunfire's powers. You probably already know, but this power was pretty tough to control at first, and that deterred her away from any sort of romantic and physical touch. But eventually she learned to fully control her powers and married Gambit. Funnily enough, despite being known as a member of the X-Men, she was initially raised as a villain by Mystique and the Brotherhood of Evil, but she eventually reformed and turned to the X-Men. Throughout her publication, she has taken on the likes of the Dazzler, Ms. Marvel, Captain America, Thor, Nimrod, and Emplet, and the fact that she's still around to tell the tale just speaks volumes about her power. Check her out, starting with her first appearance in 1981's Avengers Annual, number 10. Number 2, Jack of Hearts. Real name Jonathan Hart, aka Jack Hart, the Jack of Hearts is the son of the scientist Philip Hart and an alien from the Contraxian race. However, he was unaware that his mother was an alien for most of his life. When Hart was a teenager, his father was murdered right in front of him, and in an attempt to hide from the killers, he was covered in a powerful chemical known as the Zero Fluid, and this mutated his body and gave him the powers he has today. From that point on, he was able to create powerful beams of energy from his body, and by further harnessing and honing his skills, he is able to fly. Not to mention he also has super strength, stamina, and durability, and an accelerated healing factor. In an attempt to control his powers, Jack of Hearts built a containment suit that resembled the Jack of Hearts playing card. The lack of control became a very recurring theme with Jack of Hearts, including his stint in the Avengers where he had to spend 14 hours a day in a containment room to prevent self-destruction. When his powers became uncontrollable, he chose to finally leave Earth, exploding in space without harming any innocent bystanders. He does eventually return though in Avengers Disassembled and in the Marvel Zombie miniseries, so don't worry too much. Give his story a read for yourself, starting with 1976's Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, number 22. And number 1, Blue Marvel. Adam Brashear, aka Blue Marvel, was known as a child prodigy from a very early age, and has PhDs in electrical engineering and theoretical physics. After serving his time in the Korean War, Adam joined and led a project attempting to harness antimatter by creating a negative reactor. But there was an unexpected explosion, and both he and Connor Sims were exposed to radiation. Sims wasn't too lucky and his whole body disassembled, but Adam was able to become a stable antimatter reactor and develop some pretty sweet powers. As Blue Marvel, he possesses super strength, can manipulate antimatter into energy blast, can fly, is pretty much invulnerable, and is pretty much immortal as well, as he ages much slower than normal humans. As a part of the Mighty Avengers, both the 1970s version and the one led by Luke Cage, and the Ultimate, we have seen Blue Marvel go up against the likes of the Deathwalkers, King Hyperion, and one time he even flew directly through Shumagorath's head. He has also been seen to withstand the blast of a hydrogen and nuclear bomb, and able to withstand blows from Captain Marvel, so yeah, he deserves the top spot today. Check him out for yourself, starting with 2009's Atom, Legend of the Blue Marvel, number 1. Number 10, Hawkeye. Now I know what you're thinking, Hawkeye is basically the Aquaman of the Marvel world because everyone just kind of brushes him off, you know? But trust me when I say that he is a lot better than you think. Although Clint Barton doesn't actually possess any superpowers, he has always been a major asset to the Avengers or whatever team he's on, honestly. Clint is a master archer, specializing in any type of bow imaginable thanks to years of training, and he's capable of firing multiple arrows at once at a single target in a few seconds, hitting multiple targets in just a few quick strokes, and directly hit small targets in the greatest of distances. Not only that, but he is in peak physical condition for a human, has extraordinary eyesight, is an expert acrobat, and a master at many martial arts. As a part of multiple iterations of the Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D., the Thunderbolts, and so many more, Clint has helped take down some of the biggest and baddest enemies in the Marvel Universe, despite being a fairly average dude. There's so much more to this character that meets the eye, and I truly feel like he doesn't get all the credit that he's due, so check out his story for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1964's Tales of Suspense, number 57. Number 9, Catherine Pryde. Catherine Kitty Pryde was leading the normal life of an extremely gifted 13-year-old girl in Deerfield, Illinois, when she began suffering increasingly intense headaches. Little did she know that the headaches were actually a result of Kitty's mutant powers emerging, which is the ability to pass through solid matter. Professor X soon after located her and sought to recruit her as a new member of the X-Men, and she eventually received permission from her parents to join the mutant team. The youngest person to join the X-Men, she was first portrayed as a kid sister to many older members of the group, filling the role of literary foil to the more established characters. She occasionally used the codename Sprite and Ariel, cycling through several uniforms until settling for her trademark black and gold costume. Thanks to her training with the X-Men, she was able to further develop her powers to make them even more useful, as she is now able to use her phasing ability to phase alongside other people, phasing the entire X-Men team once. She can also camouflage herself, and after having her potential released by the Black Vortex, she was resistant to telepathic effects. Despite this immense power, she is low on this list today because she is unable to breathe while phasing, and in order to phase through an object, she has to know it's coming, which has been exploited many times. Take a look at her powers for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 1980's X-Men number 129. Number 8, Nightcrawler. The son of Mystique and the demon Azazel, Kurt Wagner was never legally adopted by anyone, but was raised within the circus. He grew up in Max Getman's circus, and his two closest friends were his quote-unquote adopted brother and sister, Stefan and Jermaine Sardos. Kurt and Stefan forged a true friendship as they grew older, and Stefan knew that his magical heritage might lure him to evil one day, so Stefan had Kurt promise him a blood oath, that if he ever killed without reason, Kurt would kill him as well. Long before his teleportation power emerged, Wagner had tremendous natural agility, and by adolescence he had become the circus's star acrobatic and aerial artist. He also possesses superhuman agility, the ability to teleport, and adhesive hands and feet. His physical mutations include indigo-colored velvety fur, which allows him to become nearly invisible in shadows, two-toed feet, and three-fingered hands. Also yellowed eyes, pointed ears, and a prehensile tail. He is also immortal due to him sacrificing his soul, which means there are no natural means of killing him anymore. In Nightcrawler's earlier comic book appearances, he's depicted as being a happy-go-lucky practical joker and teaser, and a fan of swashbuckling fiction. Nightcrawler is also a Catholic, and while that's not really emphasized as much as in his earlier comic book appearances, in later depictions Nightcrawler is more vocal about his faith. As a member of the X-Men and founding member of Excalibur, we have seen Nightcrawler use his abilities in unique and clever ways to battle Spiderman, the Punisher, Jigsaw, Cutthroat, and so many more. Take a look at Kurt for yourself, starting with 1975's giant-sized X-Men number 1. Number 7, Jubilee. Born and raised in Beverly Hills, California, Jubilation Lee lived a pretty great life, honestly. Attended an exclusive school, and was believed to have potential to go to the Olympics for gymnastics. After one terrible night though, Lee lost both her parents and all of the family money, leaving her all alone. She was sent to an orphanage not long after, but ran away and hid in a Hollywood shopping mall, stealing food as much as she could to survive. Jubilee first discovered her mutant power to generate blinding and explosive energy fireworks while running away from mall security. The stress of running away from the security guards caused her to emit a large light energy blast while in a back alley, while completely disorienting the man and creating an opening for her to escape. Upon learning about her mutant ability to create fireworks, Jubilee realized she could earn money by using her powers to entertain customers and visitors in the mall, and that's exactly what she did for a while. Now after the Reavers took over the X-Men base and captured Wolverine, Jubilee helped free him and escape, and the two quickly formed a familial bond through a father-daughter type relationship, and this was pretty much her introduction as a member of the X-Men. Now obviously there's a lot more to her story, but I will let you figure out exactly what that is for yourself. Now I briefly mentioned her powers before, but to go into a little bit more detail, Jubilee is capable of luminate kinetic explosive light blasting, which she has dubbed fireworks, and these can be used in many forms and for offensive or defensive purposes, such as hitting someone dead on or just blinding an enemy to escape. Check out her skills for yourself in her first appearance in 1989's Uncanny X-Men number 244.
Number 6. Hush. Hush has managed to pull off some of the most horrific schemes over the years and gotten under Batman's skin many times, and Catwoman's skin even, when he literally stole her heart. Thomas Elliot is not only a powerful villain because of his intense vendetta against the Wayne family and Batman, but because he also is often shown to have the skill and strength to match Batman, as well as the cunning. He has taken Batman in hand-to-hand combat and fared surprisingly well, and he's managed to set into motion outlandish plots like impersonating Bruce Wayne by giving himself plastic surgery to make himself look nearly identical, then capturing and threatening the real Bruce Wayne with murder and disfigurement so that he could ultimately take his place. Number 5. Darkseid. I know what you're thinking, but Amanda, none of us are surprised that Darkseid is super powerful. It's, you know, kinda his thing. I know Darkseid is super powerful. But remember earlier on when I said that some villains are simply surprising because they happen to go toe-to-toe with Batman at all? Well, Darkseid is one of those villains. Because he's just so powerful, it makes little sense that Batman would even be able to face him. I'm not knocking Batman here, by the way, just acknowledging that he, at the end of the day, is just a very well-trained, skilled, rich man in a bat suit. So yeah. And yet he has also managed to defeat Darkseid on more than one occasion, which is only even more unexpected and surprising. But I guess it's these unexpected storylines that we find so exhilarating and help to sell comics. So when it comes down to why they were written, it actually makes a lot of sense. It's the unexpected matches that are the stories people get excited to write and fans get excited to read. Number 4. Harley Quinn. Harley is just unexpected because of, well, I mean, where she started from in the Batverse. She was introduced in the Batman animated series as Joker's sidekick and girlfriend, and she became such a fan favorite that she was made a regular there even though she was kind of intended to be a one-off character, and would eventually make her way into the comics as well. From there, Harley's popularity meant we'd see her win all kinds of victories, or at least almost win them, and in the animated series she'd also prove how dangerous she was when she came up with some of the most potentially successful schemes, which of course often irritated her partner in crime and her partner in life, Mr. J. Over the years, Harley has become so successful and powerful, in fact, that she has moved more and more away from being a villain and more towards heroic acts, with her now even becoming one of Batman's sidekicks in the comics. For a human, Harley is also shown being very strong, flexible, and durable, in addition to being brilliant, often using her intellect or her unpredictable craziness to outsmart many of her opponents. Let's just remember that at one point she took on Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman all at once, and was actually successful in that encounter. Number 3. Poison Ivy. I mean, we all know how powerful Ivy is at this point, but it should also be acknowledged that initially she was just a student studying to be a botanist who ended up being used in her teacher's / lover's twisted experiment. She then became something new, something deadly, the villain and creature we'd come to know as Poison Ivy. Ivy was initially shown to be immune to all poisons and was interested in crime for basically the sake of status and power, able to use pheromones and kisses to influence her enemies. The power of seduction. I don't know what this is. This is seduction, apparently. Since then, Ivy has come a long way at one point, even taking control of the whole world, controlling everyone's minds through plant life that they had consumed. She also became a full-on terrifying eco-terrorist, and since the very real and also fictional world of eco-horror continues to grow, so does Ivy's power and presence in the comics, especially now that she's returned to her more traditional, villainous ways. Which is also kind of unexpected. She was down this hero path and then they were like, she's a villain again. I was like, huh? Alright. Number 2. Karma. Just because you are considered a low-level thug, or in Fleet Delmar's case a supposed freedom fighter, doesn't mean you can't rise above your rank and become something greater. That is just what Fleet did. He ended up getting his hands on some alien tech that allowed him to move up to the next level when it came to his rank as a threatening and powerful Batman villain. He was supposedly apprehended by Batman years before, who had tormented him with fear gas as punishment for his crimes. It's pretty harsh, really. This experience apparently led to him losing his eyes and becoming blind, which is why he decided to seize the alien tech and use it to get revenge. The helmet he wore granted him psychic powers, allowing him to read the minds of his opponent and counteract their attacks easily in a fight. The helmet also allowed him to absorb energy blasts, which at one point allowed Karma to take on both Black Lightning and Batman at the same time. And then he went on to have a semi-successful career with the League of Assassins. So, I mean, he died, but still, pretty crazy for just like a low-level thug in my opinion. Number 1. Phantasm. Phantasm is of course unexpected given that she had a secret identity, and in the animated series we even expected her to be a he instead of a she, so that's pretty unexpected. Andrea Beaumont is also one of those very powerful and strong villains for the fact that she holds a lot of sway over Bruce Wayne, being one of his love interests as well. Not only that, but when it comes to many of her skills and her physical prowess, she's often shown to match Batman and be on a very similar level to him, which is of course quite impressive because Batman is pretty crazy. Andrea is also surprisingly more ruthless in comparison to Bruce, having no qualms with killing those who cross her, whereas Bruce typically holds back from killing, at least in the current continuity. In his original days, not so much. So not only does she potentially have him as an ally at times, but she also has all the skill, strength, and know-how to use their relationship and her knowledge of Bruce to her advantage when playing the role of antagonist.
Number 10. Count Vertigo. Now aptly named Werner Vertigo, he is a man who was born with an inner ear defect that affected his balance. So naturally he was implanted with a device that not only corrected that, but also gave him the ability to cause extreme vertigo in other people. That's right, his entire ability is disrupting his enemy's balance, and honestly you might think that's not really anything to write home about, but trust me, it is a lot more useful than you might think. Now Count Vertigo uses his ability to mess up the aim of even the best marksmen, to disrupt the guidance system of some of the most high-tech machinery, and even uses it to manipulate the emotions of people, causing them to flop between emotions like crazy. Now there are also two other Count Vertigos that fought against Green Arrow, but they use drugs to cause the same effects in their victims, and we are going to ignore them because using drugs is not cool.
It's true, it's not cool.
It's really not.
Number 9. Calendar Man. Calendar Man to most people is just a guy who's obsessed with the date. But in reality, he is also one of the most accomplished villains. During his first appearance, he almost managed to defeat Batman, one of the greatest and smartest detectives in the world, straight out of the gate, by giving him an almost unsolvable problem. Calendar Man sent an anonymous letter promising to commit 5 crimes, one each day, each one corresponding to a particular season and theme, with the 5th day also being a clue as to the true identity of Calendar Man, with the 5th season. Batman failed to capture Calendar Man on the first 4 days, often arriving too late to the scene of the crime. And on the 5th day, it was only an ad for Calendar Man's side hustle as a magician who was playing 5 days at the Bijou Theater in Gotham that allowed Batman to connect the dots. Where would Batman be without ads from the local newspaper? Local newspapers, they're important.
They really are. You always gotta support local.
Yeah.
Number 8. Phobia. Quite possibly one of the most underrated villains in the DC universe, Angela Hawkins III is Phobia, a member of the Brotherhood of Evil and constant enemy of the new Teen Titans that is capable of bringing your deepest and darkest fears to the surface. She basically uses psychic abilities to access the fear center of your brain and creates incredibly lifelike illusions that incapacitate pretty much everyone except for a select few who have been shown to be immune. Funnily enough, she is actually not immune to her own powers because she has some deep, dark insecurities and phobias hidden away as well, behind that, tough exterior. And that was exploited by Raven in an attempt to convert her to the hero side of things. Obviously that didn't work though, because since then, she has joined the Injustice League as a new member.
Number 7. Giganta. You expect Giganta to be strong, of course, considering she is a gigantic woman, but I also feel like she's a villain that is more often than not forgotten by people. So while you might expect the strength to come along with her, you just wouldn't really expect her at all most days. Dora Azul was attempting to cure her rare blood disease that she was born with by experimenting on herself. Her mad scientist ways caused her to end up in a conflict with Wonder Woman, and later caused her to also become the villain she is today. In the original continuity of New Earth, Doris abducted the body of a strong woman named Olga, putting her own consciousness into that body and gaining the ability to grow in size when her plot to steal Wonder Woman's body had failed her.
Number 6. Automatopoeia. Now I personally love a good automatopoeia, but hey, I will take a bad one every now and then, and that is exactly what this villain is. He is a serial killer that specifically targets non-powered heroes, and he is so aptly named because he imitates the noises around him, such as his gunfire or the dripping water. He is also seen to be surprisingly durable for a human, able to take 6 arrows without slowing him down, and drop at least 7 stories and just keep on running. Now this highly trained villain is one of the most clever out there, not only attacking Oliver Queen's son Connor, but fooling Batman so much that he reveals his own identity. And also in true villain fashion, he messed with Batman even further by killing his fiancée Silver St. Cloud, slitting her throat while imitating the sound Batman's utility belt makes.
Number 5, Punchline. Punchline is a newer villain on the scene and as such has definitely been underestimated. But honestly, it's this attitude that only serves to fuel Punchline's desire to prove that she is actually worthy of all of that hype. As far as we know, she is like Joker, a non-powered human being. Punchline typically fights with small stiletto blades, and despite only being in a few issues so far, she has managed to slit Harley Quinn's throat and create her own specific brew of Joker venom just for Batman, which has succeeded in making him go pretty crazy recently, imagining Alfred is still alive and still on his communique systems, despite the fact that, you know, he's very dead.
Number 4, Amazo. A super deadly android designed by the insane in the membrane scientist Professor Ivo that acts as an enemy to the Justice League. Thanks to its synthetic body, Amazo is capable of replicating anything about a person in its general vicinity, including their powers and skills, so you can probably understand why this android is so powerful and so dangerous. Amazo has been shown duplicating the powers and skills of Superman, Green Lantern, Zatanna, Black Canary, Elongated Man, and so many more, meaning his arsenal of powers to choose from is absolutely ridiculous. Not only that, he also has the ability to temporarily negate the powers of the hero that he's mimicking. So, for example, he could strip Superman of his powers for a finite amount of time and just pummel him into the dirt. That is absolutely insane if you ask me, and that is why he is on this list today.
Number 3, Harley Quinn. In Batman the Animated Series, Harley Quinn unintentionally pissed off the Joker because she proved just how valuable of a partner in crime she was, and how capable she is as a villain without even the Joker's help, and has also done so with her pal Poison Ivy. Though of course Harley and Ivy just believed they had kidnapped millionaire Bruce Wayne at the time and made him take them on a shopping spree. But still, that's pretty impressive. While many also think that Harley is always moving closer to becoming more soft and more of a hero than a baddie, let's not forget when she executed one of the most villainous plots, also without the Joker, killing tons of children across Gotham with free explosives that were disguised as video games, simply because she was bored and sort of feeling lost in terms of what to do with herself. So yeah, don't underestimate Harley Quinn.
Number 2, the Reverse Flash. Eobard Thawne, one of the many speedsters that you'll find scattered throughout time and space in the DC universe. Also known as Professor Zoom, this biggest Flash fanatic to ever live is capable of basically all the things that the Flash and his Speed family can do, you know, like time travel, super speed, and electrokinesis. But what really sets him apart is his ability to completely negate another's connection to the Speed Force, effectively stripping his fellow speedsters of their powers and rendering them honestly useless. His most impressive feat though would probably be when he, you know, set the entirety of the New 52 in motion by creating the Flashpoint timeline. Almost every hero and villain dies in some gruesome death thanks to the circumstances of this new universe, and yeah, that's pretty scary if you ask me.
Number 1, Lex Luthor. Now when you boil it down, Lex Luthor is just a dude. He's just a bald dude who has a big beef with Superman. Whether that's because he doesn't like the fact that Superman's an alien, or he blames Superman for his hair loss, depending on the comics you're reading. The fact remains that his brilliant intellect puts him in the running to be one of the strongest, most powerful, and definitely most iconic Superman villains of all time. The fact that 1, Luthor is also a human who keeps one of the most superpowered heroes, Superman, on his toes, and that 2, he managed to convince the country, despite being a supervillain, to vote him in as president, are both pretty impressive.
Coming in at number 10, we have Taskmaster. Let's kick off the list with a villain who is pretty well known and is actually going to be the main villain in the next upcoming Black Widow movie. At face value, sure, Taskmaster is pretty strong, but I wouldn't put him in the ranks of strongest of all time. After all, he can still be killed by conventional means, unlike Galactus or Thanos. But what makes Taskmaster so powerful is his ability to train others. On more than one occasion, Taskmaster has been in charge charge of training armies to fight against heroes. Now because Taskmaster has his super drug which allows him to have insanely powerful recall, and he's able to mimic and decipher other people's combat styles, he can use this to prepare thousands of people to take down heroes in the perfect way. He would know exactly how to fight them, and he can display all of their techniques because he already knows them. So it's not so much that Taskmaster himself is massively powerful, but it's the way that he can apply his skills. Coming in at number 9 we have The Natural, a brand new villain on the scene, so the potential of their own power is still unknown, but it would seem at the very least they can beat the hell out of some of the most skilled heroes that are already calling themselves Avengers. In the first issue where we see The Natural take center stage, he comes into conflict with Bucky Barnes and the Falcon. The two of them are veterans of the hero world and should be able to take out a new villain with no problem. I mean, at first glance The Natural looks like a 20-year-old with the brightest blonde hair and eyes you have ever seen. He looks like he should be on a K-pop poster, not beating the hell out of two members of the Avengers. Well, that's exactly what he does. And before we can get any more details about who this brand new villain is, he has to run off and we have no idea where he went. I think it's safe to say that this guy could be one of the Avengers' most skilled enemies in the future. Coming in at number 8 we have Stiltman. I mean, the name alone is super lame. You couldn't call yourself anything cooler like Dr. Tall or Towerfoot or Lanky Larry, anything. But even though Stiltman is super lame at first glance and doesn't have any real powers outside of his super suit, he's actually quite strong. When you go through the list of heroes that he has gone toe to toe with and actually created a lot of issues for, he actually starts to look like a little bit of a big shot. Mind you, he's not going to be ripping down reality anytime soon, but he might just kick Wolverine in the head so hard he gets a concussion for like 30 seconds. Coming in at number 7 we have Bessie the Hell Cow. I mean, we have to throw Bessie on here just because your average comic fan would have never heard of her. It definitely caught me off guard. How do you make a cow that is so powerful it constantly comes back from the dead and has been a villainous threat for nearly 300 years? Well, you have Dracula bite the cow and drain the blood out of it. Then the cow dies. Then the cow comes back to life as a vampire cow and goes on the loose trying to murder anyone that gets in its way. And this cow has all the regular tropes that vampires have, so you better believe that she's going to be drinking blood all the time. Also, she has the ability to move her soul into another cow's body if she gets killed, so in a way she is immortal. And what if she can move her soul into another creature's body, like something even more powerful? Coming in at number 6 we have the Hulk. Wait, why is Hulk on this list? He's a hero and we all know how strong he is. Well, I threw him on the list because even though his strength is known, his changes to the side of villainy are probably not as well renowned. There is an entire comic run, Planet Hulk, where the Hulk is banished from Earth and was supposed to live out his days on a desolate planet, but then he ends up becoming the king of a faraway world and then returns to Earth to lay waste to all the Avengers, and holy moly does he do a number on them. And there have been several times when the Hulk has turned his back on his pals because of one of his famous mood swings, or even became their enemy at a crucial moment where they needed him to be clear-headed. In the end, Hulk is only a hero for as long as his patience lasts, which is usually pretty long but can shift at any moment. Bruce Banner. We might as well follow one half with the other. Now, even though Hulk is way stronger than Banner, Dr. Banner is way more unexpected of a villain. I mean, he's been a certified hero right up until Jason Aaron had his run with him on the Hulk. This was where the Hulk had Dr. Doom separate him from Banner for good. Now you think this would be better for the both of them, but turns out Banner goes insane without the Hulk floating around in his head, and Banner as a villain is pretty powerful. He starts a Dr. Moreau Island making a bunch of Hulk animal hybrids. An army of Hulk creatures is enough to make any member of the Avengers sweat, and on top of all this, he's one of the smartest people on planet Earth. So even though it hasn't happened a lot, when Banner goes bad, everyone should be shook. Coming in at number 4 we have Mojo. I don't know if Mojo is more unexpected or forgotten, but I think he slides perfectly into this spot on the list. Mojo is basically what happens when you give a CEO supreme cosmic power without any laws. Mojo is the ruler of his world and basically runs everything like a TV executive, creating more and more outlandish ways to create entertainment for his people without a shred of morality. But Mojo has been able to capture some of the strongest heroes and force them to compete in battles of strength so he can keep his ratings at an all-time high. Coming at number 3 we have Venom. Once again another villain who packs a punch but usually operates in the realm of manageability. Like if Venom is on the loose, you don't call in the Avengers A-Team, you send in the East Coast Avengers to deal with them and then you call it a day. But here's the thing, symbiotes can sometimes get stronger over time and their strength is very much attached to the person they bond to. For instance, there was one occasion where Venom combined with Red Hulk and Ghost Rider to make one of the most incredible comic book fantasies I could ever dream dream of. So for his day-to-day endeavors, Venom is a cool villain with an amazing backstory and a decent power level, but when you get into some of the all-time most powerful things that he has ever done, he is pretty amazing. Coming into the number 2 spot, we have Juggernaut. The first YouTube video I ever watched was a dubbed episode of X-Men, and I still remember it. It highlighted the Juggernaut in the best way, but even though we know the Juggernaut is strong as hell, he's not the strongest in the universe kind of strong. He's able to take on some of the stronger Marvel heroes like Thor, but he can also be bested by the likes of Spider-Man. But here's the thing, the Juggernaut's power level tends to fluctuate a lot. He gets his juice from the Crimson Gem of Sidorak, which is basically powered by a god from another dimension. On one occasion, Kane Marco, aka the Juggernaut, was able to tap into the full potential of this gem and became a being so powerful he could crack through realities with a punch. He was also 100 feet tall, so as you can imagine, he was quite the tough villain to take down. In fact, if he never lost touch with the true strength of that gem, he might have been supreme overlord of all the Marvel universe. And coming into the number 1 spot, we have Absorbing Man. At face value, Absorbing Man is a brute who can suck in some metal and punch dudes in the face. It's a very simple skill, but here's the thing about Absorbing Man, his powers are actually magical, so that means he can absorb things that work outside of the realm of reality. He is able to absorb energy from magical weapons, and he's also been able to absorb Ultron. Wait, what? Yeah, you know that powerful robot that almost killed the Avengers like 100 times and was actually successful on a few occasions in other timelines? Well, Absorbing Man sucked him in and then was able to absorb knowledge and basically became the most powerful creature on the planet by far. So who would have thought that some low tier criminal would be able to get to such a high power level? That is way over 9,000.
Starting off our list at number 10, we have the Diabolical Parasite. That's right, for the first entry on a list about power, we've got the supervillain whose entire gimmick is sucking it up. Born under the name of Rudolph Rudy Jones, the Parasite was born after accidentally ingesting a toxic substance at LexCorp that was eventually revealed to be the byproduct of extracted kryptonite radiation. This gave Rudy an unstoppable hunger and the ability to grow stronger by absorbing the life energy and superpowers of anyone unfortunate enough to be his victim. The villain is impulsively drawn to those with the most power, and while he was initially more of a foil for the DC hero Firestorm, Superman's sun-based powers and incredible strength makes him the theoretical perfect feast for the Parasite. And judging by the amount of time that Superman has had to be saved at the last moment from Parasite to prevent himself from being completely sucked dry of his life energy, Parasite is definitely one of the more dangerous and hungry villains that Clark Kent should watch out for. Coming in at number 9, we have the one and only Bloodsport. Most well known for recently starring in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, Bloodsport was a young man who avoided his draft to Vietnam and fled to Canada, leaving his brother to die in his place. Driven mad by this unexpected turn of events, Bloodsport became an extremely talented mercenary who then became nearly unstoppable when he was gifted a device that allowed him to instantly summon any weapon he could imagine directly into his hands. Using this new gift, Bloodsport was nearly able to kill Superman by creating a gun that fired kryptonite bullets, a talent that leaves him pretty high up on the list of people considered dangerous by good old Supes. Speaking of deadly kryptonite-themed villains, at number 8 we've got the disturbingly gross monstrosity known as Cancer. But, you know, spelled with a K because kryptonite. Cancer's origin story begins when Superman is poisoned with modified kryptonite by General Zod, leading to the growth of a kryptonite tumor within his body. While Superman's life was able to be saved by the efforts of Dr. Emil Hamilton and the rest of the Superman family, the discarded tumor was stolen again by General Zod's forces and mutated into a full-sized, xenomorph-looking creature with a life-killing aura and abandonment issues over how its father, Superman, forgot about it. Cancer is capable of wounding and breaking the skin of any Kryptonian, as he's essentially kryptonite itself in the flesh. And if you're literally poisoned to your archenemy, I'd say that Superman had better watch out. Coming in at number 7, it's none other than Superman's twisted doppelganger, Bizarro. Now, honestly, when it comes directly to power levels, Bizarro should be a little bit higher on this list. When push comes to shove, as an imperfect duplication of Superman made by Lex Luthor's duplication ray, Bizarro has comparable strength to his nemesis, and has opposite versions of some of his more notable abilities. Freeze vision instead of heat vision, flame breath instead of freezing breath, and so on and so forth. However, Bizarro Bizarro also feels a strong calling to be more than just a twisted version of Superman, and over the years has become more of an anti-hero than an outright villain, and seems content to try and carve out his own little slice of paradise on his new planet, Bizarro World. Taking up a controversial spot at number 6, we have the one and only Lex Luthor, Superman's arch-rival. Hating the idea of an alien having so much power and receiving so much love on planet Earth, Lex Luthor has been everything from a mad scientist to a ruthless businessman to even the President of the United States in his desperate quest, man, once and for all. He may be merely a human being, but with his dark intellect and lack of morals, Lex Luthor is more than capable of being noted as one of Superman's most powerful foes, whether he's inside a kryptonite-fueled suit of armor or merely using his giant evil brain. Coming in at number 5 with another example of Superman's own power set being twisted and used against him, we have Superboy Prime. A jaded version of Kal-El from an alternate universe known as Earth Prime, this Superboy was the only superpowered hero on his own world, with all other heroes merely being fictional. After this reality was wiped out during the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Superboy Prime became obsessed with recapturing his past glory as the one and only Man of Steel, and slowly twisted into a psychotic version of Kal-El, determined to wipe out every other Clark Kent. Few thoughts are scarier in the DC multiverse than a rogue Superman determined to cross dimensions to get exactly what he wants. At number 4, we've got to go with Mongol, an intergalactic conqueror from the stars. One of the few non-Kryptonians in Superman's rogues gallery that could still survive coming to actual blows with him, Mongol is the charismatic leader of Warworld, a mobile battle station of a planet that travels the universe looking for planets to, naturally, wage war against. Training for a time with the Sinestro Corps, Mongol is one of the most skilled combatants and tactical adversaries that Superman has ever faced. And while he may be less known than the other intergalactic conqueror known as Darkseid, Mongol and his extended warlord family are a persistent thorn in Superman's side. Coming in at number 3, it's the Superman killer himself, Doomsday. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is a list of Superman villains you wouldn't expect to be the most powerful, so how is the alien that's literally best known for killing Superman gonna count? Well, while Doomsday already does have an incredible reputation for killing Superman in the 90s, the character has only gotten more deadly, powerful, and unpredictable in the years since. Doomsday's most horrifying power is his ability to evolve and improve over any method that has defeated him in the past, an ability that has led to the creature becoming more and more intelligent with each encounter, and even exuding a toxin that's so powerful it was able to take out superpowered individuals like Wonder Woman. While Superman may have only died once to this Kryptonian monster, Doomsday is still biding his time for the rematch that'll finally let him get a second victory against the Man of Steel. At number 2, we've got yet another twisted version of Kal-El with the terrifying Ultraman. In the alternate universe of Earth 3, Superman's biological father was a far eviler man, and filled his infant son's spaceship with messages and monologues about his ideology and how Kal-El deserved to be the strongest possible being in the universe. Murdering his adoptive parents at the young age of only 7 after discovering that shards of his home planet, Kryptonite, made him stronger, this version of Superman instead took the name Ultraman, and wound up assassinating the President of the United States before forming the Crime Syndicate, a dark doppelganger of the main DC Universe's Justice League. While other evil versions of Superman have been held back by mutations or outside intervention, Ultraman is Superman at his peak, but with none of the morals and nothing holding him back, meaning that every time he crosses over into another universe, Superman needs to stay on his guard. At our top spot on this list is the character I've been looking forward to pronouncing this entire video. It's Mr. Mxyzptlk. Superman's main two weaknesses throughout all of comics are kryptonite and magic, and while Mxyzptlk might not have much of the former, his magic is beyond compare. A being from the 5th dimension who enjoys tormenting the most powerful hero of our more basic 3D existence, Mxyzptlk's dimensional abilities essentially make him omnipotent with magic, allowing him to alter the rules of logic, reality, and capable of teleporting wherever he pleases. The only way to defeat him is usually by some made-up rule of his own decree, such as getting him to spell his name backwards, a spell that can send him back to his own dimension for a guaranteed 90 days. Definitely one of the oddest villains Superman has ever faced. Mixyezpitalik is honestly more of a nuisance than an outright bad guy, but his limitless powers make us very grateful that he seems more focused on trickery than outright world domination.
An intense shocker. Herman Schultz's parents died when his younger brother Marty was a boy. From a young age, Schultz turned to a life of crime. However, he soon realized that he wasn't really good at it, having been arrested several times. After one robbery gone wrong, he got arrested again, but was sent to a prison workshop, where he used the resources around him to build gauntlets that sent out shock waves which quickly opened safes as well, giving himself a one-up on the authorities, a much needed one. Now I know what you're thinking, but how could a guy named Herman be any form of powerful? Well, the Shocker had the ability to shock his enemies with his handheld vibro shock units. But because the vibrations were so fierce, he wore a heavily insulated suit, and during his first outing as the self-styled Shocker, he ran into and defeated Spider-Man. Plus, I mean, he's the Shocker. He shocks people. In at 9, Hydro Man. Morris Bench was born and raised in the Bronx, New York. He began working as a crewman on cargo ship, but he was accidentally knocked overboard by Spider-Man while a powerful experimental generator was being lowered into the ocean for testing. Exposed to the energy conversion process of the generator while being bombarded with volcanic gas, Bench's cellular structure was altered. When he was rescued from the depths though, his body began extruding great quantities of some watery substance, which Bench first attributed to just being sweat. Annoyed by the incessant dripping, Bench went to a local pub to stir up trouble, finding none, but he was astonished to learn that he could convert his entire physical form into basically water. While he may just be a form of Sandman, being able to convert to water instead of sand, he certainly seems more powerful to me. There is water basically everywhere, and our bodies are made of 70% water, so if Bench was able to tap into the water that is in his enemies' bodies, that would be a freaking nightmare. Not to mention a horrible sight. And it ain't the Kingpin. A crime boss is one thing. A crime boss that to the public is a well-respected philanthropist and businessman is something else. Especially a businessman who is like 300 pounds of muscle. Wilson Fisk is an absolute madman who runs most of the New York and Las Vegas criminal underworld. However, things get even more intense after his wife is killed so that he doesn't retire. After the murder of his wife, not only did he resume leadership of his former organization, but he also turned over the files on other criminal leaders to law enforcement through the costumed crime fighter of Daredevil, now with the motive of ridding himself of any rivals, and the ploy actually worked, and as a result of the evidence in the files, many crime leaders, both inside and outside the Magia, were convicted. In the ensuing power vacuum, the Kingpin rebuilt his coalition stronger than before. He moved on to control a great majority of non-Magia East Coast gangs dealing in conventional crimes, and the Kingpin's organization became stronger than any single Magia family in the New York area could ever withstand. We love a savvy businessman. And at 7, Spider-Side. Spider-Side is a more obscure and odd Spider-Man villain that I still think would give the hero a run for his money nowadays. Being first introduced as Spider-Side in New Warriors number 61, this version of Peter Parker is one of the clones made by Dr. Miles Warren, an entirely separate villain that caused the whole clone debacle and the introduction of Ben Reilly and the Scarlet Spider. But what's notable about Spider-Side is not only him having all of Spider-Man's powers, but also the ability to stretch and warp his body at will, similar to Mr. Fantastic. Spider-Side is certainly deadly as well, helping Jackal to release a virus in Springfield, Pennsylvania, which resulted in the deaths of over 2,600 people, which Homer Simpson was definitely not happy about. But either way, Spider-Side, with all the abilities of Spider-Man and Mr. Fantastic, makes him pretty damn powerful for a villain that not really many people know about.
Number 6, Wonder Man. One of the Avengers' more troubled team members, Simon Williams. Simon inherited his father's company, Williams Innovations, and ended up running it into the ground with the help of competition from Stark Industries. He was later then arrested for embezzling funds from the company, giving him a bitter hatred for Iron Man that was then leveraged by the supervillain Baron Zemo in a plan against the Avengers. After being given powers by Zemo, however, Simon betrays him and chooses to fight alongside the team he once fought against, the Avengers. The exact nature of his powers isn't always clear, but regardless, this energy gives his body a massive power up beyond the capability of normal humans, one of the powers being, of course, super strength. Wonder Man's strength is said to be on par with Thor and possibly even Sentry. I mean, he was literally able to knock Thor out once with a single punch, and this is a result of experiments by Zemo. Wonder Man is also imbued with ionic energy, giving him super stamina, speed, and agility, and also flight and superhuman reflexes, as well as making him pretty much indestructible. Wonder Man can also absorb various forms of energy, including antimatter, and is able to project powerful energy blasts at will, and can even exist as pure energy if he wishes to. Perhaps the biggest quirk of his abilities, however, is that he doesn't actually require any food, water, or oxygen to survive, thanks to his vast reserves of energy. Check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1964's Avengers number 9. Number 5. Cersei. A member of the Eternals, Cersei easily ranks as one of the group's most overpowered members, and, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated characters in the Marvel Universe in terms of ability. Like many other members of the Eternals, she is tens of thousands of years old, meaning she has seen quite a bit in her time. She officially joins the Earth's mightiest heroes in Avengers number 314, partially due to her desire to protect humanity, but mostly because of her fondness for Captain America. Possessing the strength, speed, stamina, and combat skills and invulnerability you'd expect from the Eternals, it's said that the only way to actually kill Cersei for good is to scatter her atoms about. Also similar to her fellow Eternals, her ability to fire cosmic blasts from her hands. Cersei is somewhat unique amongst her peers due to her strong telekinetic abilities. What cements Cersei as one of Marvel's most powerful heroes, however, is her incredible transmutation ability, allowing her to reshape matter at a molecular level. She is considered a 5th level adept at transmutation, which is also the highest possible level, and she has used her power to turn a deviant to rubber, give the Avengers gills, and even disintegrate air itself. It also seems that she can create sentient life, bringing stone statues to life and turning inanimate objects into various animals and creatures at will. Check out her immense power for yourself, starting with her first appearance in 1976's Eternals, number 3. Number 4. Gilgamesh. Often referred to as the Forgotten One, Gilgamesh's heroic exploits have become so legendary over the millennia that he's often referred to as heroes of myth, like Hercules and Gilgamesh, which explains why he just goes by Gilgamesh. He is one of, if not the strongest member of the hidden group of superpowered beings known as the Eternals, an ancient race of genetically altered humans created by the Celestials. Alongside his teammates, he helps shield humanity from the vicious deviants, though Gilgamesh seems to have a very soft spot for just protecting the people of Earth. He joined the Avengers in a time where their membership was at an all-time low, and although his time with them was pretty short-lived, he was an absolutely vital member of the team. While all Eternals are born with an inherent set of superhuman abilities such as super strength, Gilgamesh's strength far exceeds that of his counterparts, making him one of the most physically powerful characters in all of Marvel, with strength comparable to that of Hercules, Thor, and other godlike beings. As a result of countless millennia of training, Gilgamesh is also an extremely skilled hand-to-hand combat fighter, which, coupled with his imperviousness to damage, makes him one of Marvel's most dangerous characters. As is the case with most other Eternals, Gilgamesh can also emit deadly beams of light, heat, and physical force from his hands and eyes, and can manipulate matter to a limited degree. Give his story a read for yourself, starting with 1977's Eternals, number 13. Number 3. Squirrel Girl. Born to Dorian and Maureen Green, Dorian Green suffered a modification in her genes for unknown reasons that granted her squirrel-like abilities, which manifested predominantly in the form of a prehensile tail. When her parents consulted with the doctor, it was determined that Dorian wasn't actually a mutant, even though it was just kind of assumed that she was. At the age of 10, she discovered that she could communicate with squirrels, and that's how she met Monkey Joe, who encouraged her to use her powers and abilities for good. Her full arsenal of powers is kind of like Spider-Man's if you think about it, but with squirrel attributes as opposed to, Spidey powers. She has super strength, superhuman jaw strength, a regenerative healing factor, and of course her 3-foot prehensile tail that she can basically use as an extra limb. The best thing about Squirrel Girl though, in my opinion, and honestly everyone else's that I've talked to, is that she is so immensely kind and friendly, which somehow makes her more powerful. At one point, Doreen hijacked an Iron Man suit to head outside the stratosphere and face off against Galactus, and in true Squirrel Girl fashion, she is able to instead convince Galactus into letting her find a tasty alternative to consuming the planet Earth like a Thin Mint, getting him to admit that all the people in skyscrapers would just, hurt his mouth. She befriended the planet Devourer, and that is absolutely nuts. In addition to Galactus, she has also quote-unquote defeated Craven the Hunter and Doctor Doom, something that not every hero can say. Check out Doreen for yourself in her first appearance in 1991's Marvel Superheroes Volume 2. Number 2. The Sentry. Robert Reynolds, aka Sentry, aka Marvel's dark answer to Superman. He's a superhero with a ton of powers, but he is constantly at war with the dark force within called the Void. So basically, when a middle-aged Bob remembers he was once the superhero the Sentry, he returns to his heroic life. When he finds out the Void, his archenemy, is returning to Earth. However, most of Earth's population has no memory of him. It's later revealed that the Void is a second personality within him, and that both personas have been erased to protect himself and the world. His powers come from a special version of the super soldier formula called the Golden Century Serum, and has given him the power of immortality alongside superhuman levels of speed, strength, agility, and stamina, as well as teleportation, flight, and just so much more. Sentry has been seen easily lifting 100 tons with little to no effort, meaning that if he really pushes himself, his weight limit could be, I don't know, like 110 tons or even 150. Honestly, who knows? This is just speculation, but when you take into consideration all the additional powers that Sentry has, we think being in the top 5 of Marvel's strongest heroes is a fair ranking. Throughout the Marvel Universe, Sentry has been seen as a member of the New Avengers, the Mighty Avengers, the Dark Avengers, and even the Horsemen of Death, and every time he has been a vital member to the group. Check him out for yourself, starting with 2000 Sentry, number 1. And number 1, Franklin Richards. Sure, his parents are strong, Sue and Reed Richards, very strong, I think we all know that, but who knew that combining their mutagenic genes would create the most powerful being in the cosmos? Franklin Richards is a mutant who is classified as a rare and Omega level character. His most powerful characteristic is that he can literally warp reality as well as control the fundamental forces of the universe. He is one of the strongest mutants to ever exist, with powers equal to that of Celestials, meaning he is on par with literal gods. Unlike most other mutants, his powers actually manifested before puberty, and needless to say, wielding such a power at an early age gave cause for concern from his family, but Franklin has proven more than capable of using his powers since, and even made the Devourer of Worlds Galactus his herald. Honestly, feats of strength don't get any more bold than that, and given how Franklin still has plenty of room left to grow, it stands to reason that he could become not just the universe's most powerful hero, but its most powerful inhabitant as well. There's also an alternate universe where Franklin obtains immortality alongside all his original powers, which is just insane. It's just insane if you think about it. Check out his story for yourself in his first appearance in 1968's Fantastic Four Annual, number 6.
Kicking off the list at number 10. Monet St. Croix made her first appearance in Generation X issue 1 as Penance, and by the time issue 40 rolled around, she was introduced as Monet. She was the second child of Ambassador Cartier St. Croix, who was a wealthy former president of numerous corporations. Now, although she had an older brother and 2 young twin sisters, her father still favored her. Now, her brother Marius had mutant abilities, and when they manifested, he became evil. Sadly, he actually took out his mother and was kicked out of the family, and then he asked Monet to join him, traveling through other dimensions, gaining power. She was like, nope, I'm good, thanks. So she rejected him, and Marius trapped her in this form of a mute creature with diamond-hard red skin. And he fed on her powers. What a not nice guy. It's awful. So Claudia and Nicole, her sisters, the twins, they joined forces. Like, literally. They merged into a new version of Monet. And it was all pretty much the same. Personality, appearance, and powers. M is a telepathic genius, and of course super strength and super speed sure does help her get the job done. Before we continue on with this list, guys, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be great. It does help our channel quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Let's go right back into this list. I don't want to waste any more time. Number 9, Frenzy. Okay, Joanna Cargill. She made her first debut in X Factor issue 4. Now, she accidentally punched her father so hard that her hand went through his chestal plate, which is just a great way to find out you have powers. Now, her father was in no means a good person at all, but still, finding out you're a mutant in that way is pretty rough. That's pretty traumatizing for a young kid. So she became known as Frenzy, and she joined the Allegiance of Evil. Now, after the Acolytes disbanded, Joanna became ambassador for Genosha and stood by Magneto until she was captured by the US government in order to learn more about Magneto, but she didn't talk. She was a tough one. She didn't talk until Jean Grey entered and freed her, giving her the option to join the X-Men the easy way or the hard way. Jean used the hard way, and then Frenzy's entire attitude was changed. Her personality was like campy, it was awkward, not nearly as confident as before, but her powers were still there. She did help the X-Men find Magneto's base. She was a team member, even if it was forced and campy. So after Magneto's defeat, her mind control was released and she rejoined the Acolytes and then left the X-Mansion. Super speed, super strength, super stamina, super everything, you name it, she's got it. Her body has been described as being hard as steel, making the She-Hulk put up quite a fight. Number 8, Armor. Hisako Ichiki made her first appearance in Astonishing X-Men Volume 3, Issue 4. Now, she grew up in Japan before joining the Xavier Institute. She formed a close relationship with Wing and Blindfold once she joined Kitty Pryde's Paladin Squad. Now, her new close friends were being attacked one day by Ord of Breakworld, so Armor used her unique mutant abilities to take care of him with a mighty punch. She can create the psionic exoskeleton suit of armor, hence the name Armor. It's fueled by the energy of Hisako's ancestors. In the Ultimate Universe, her abilities create quite the spectacle as well. They appear in the shape of these massive animals, these great beasts, even dragons at some point. As if these abilities weren't surprising and fantastic enough, she also received combat training from Wolverine and tactic training from Cyclops. so she's kind of a big deal. Number 7, Vulcan. He named himself after the Roman god of fire, but Vulcan's real identity was that of Gabriel Summers. He was born after Cyclops and Havoc. Well, not really. He wasn't really born. He was actually surgically removed from his mother's body and placed in an incubator accelerator, then aged to be at his prime, and then sent to Earth to work for Dak and Shikari. One of those normal childhoods, you know? So he escaped and he was found by Moira McTaggart with no memories of who he is or where he came from. Poor kid. So we asked for Charles' help, and then all Kid Vulcan wanted to do was learn about his mutant abilities. Sounds like the perfect student. Like, come on, you're doing all the right things. Charles needed help from him and other newcomers to find the remaining X-Men. So Charles put him in this danger room as a training exercise to get them sharp in a short amount of real time. So it felt like months of training, but in fact it's only a few hours. And then Vulcan and this new team were sent to Krakoa to rescue the original X-Men. But Vulcan revealed to Scott that Xavier sacrificed his own brother to save him. Number 6, Maggot. That's a fun name right off the bat. Maggot? Maggot, or I mean Japheth, first appeared in Uncanny X-Men issue 345. He was born with 5 siblings but never grew at the same rate as them. And on top of that, he had struggled with pains in his stomach. Sadly, those pains turned out to maybe be cancer, and he feared that he would run his family dry with medical bills. So at just age 12, he left the South African village and started to think of a dark solution to his problem. Super tragic. So he ended up in the Kalahari Desert and was found by Magneto, who figured out that these stomach issues were actually these 2 slug-like creatures that lived in the boy's body, and they acted as his digestive system. Years later, Maggot reached out to Magneto in hopes that he would help him with this gross situation. Now the slugs, named Eenie and Meanie, because that's what you do when you have slugs, you give them cute nicknames, they were these sentient techno-organic slugs that could devour anything. Doesn't matter what kind of matter you are, gone, devoured. They would do it fast too, not at the pace of normal slugs. And once lunchtime was finished, they would return back to Japheth's stomach, transferring the energy from what they just consumed, granting him super strength and durability. Also, he had a nice avatar tan to go along with these magnificent abilities. Number 5, Kid Omega. Now again, the word kid is used lightly in this list. You do not want to underestimate Quentin Quire, aka Kid Omega. He made his first appearance in X-Men issue 134. He's been described as one of the most powerful telepaths next to Jean Grey. So off the bat, you know you're in for a treat. He was one of Xavier's prized pupils. That is until, of course, he put together the Omega Gang, which was this gang that would handle humans after they've committed crimes against mutants. They would do it themselves, not in a poetic way, to say the least. They were like the super kid police. They even went to a tattoo shop and made it official. They got these Omega symbols tattooed over top of the X. Now his abilities are insane. He can manipulate your perception, judgment, wills, and common sense. He's able to track you down by listening to your thoughts, folks. Your thoughts, you can hear your thoughts. And even in this instance, if you were a telepath, you wouldn't see him coming because he would block out your powers to sneak up on you. One of the coolest things about Quentin is the psionic shotgun that he can create. It just looks cool. He just channels all this mental energy as this astral energy shotgun. And if that doesn't do the trick, the psionic rocket launcher should. Number 4, Kubark, aka Kid Gladiator, another kid. Kubark is the son of Emperor Gladiator. He was this young prince sent to Earth to train and discover more secrets about his powers. And the one place you go and do that is, of course, the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. Warbird was his bodyguard, and the reason that he was sent to Earth, this new kid on the block, was because he destroyed more than half of the Shi'ar royal city on Chandalar. Just for fun, you know? In Wolverine and the X-Men, he arrives and starts giving orders to other students, like to bring him snacks, the whole thing. And he wanted these students to call him their new Imperial Overlord. He's jam-packed with superpowers though. He can possess the ability to fly, and his eyes are pretty interesting, not just to look at. He has microscopic vision and can blast heat beams through those peepers. And with an incredible lung capacity, he can take in large amounts of air and blast it out, creating these hurricane-like winds. And if that doesn't work, he can use his breath to freeze you dead in your tracks. Number 3, Lifeguard, aka Heather Cameron. Lifeguard is such a cool character. Okay, let's talk about her. She's super unique. She made her first debut in Extreme X-Men issue 6. And judging by her name, yes, she of course started off as a lifeguard and also as a surfer. Her mutant ability is that of a lifeguard. Literally, her powers allow her to manifest whatever is needed to save the life of somebody near her. If you're allergic to peanuts, bam, EpiPen, stab, we're good. She's like the super medic of the X-Men. She's awesome. After the events of M-Day, Heather was one of the lucky to retain her abilities. She's almost a combination of Darwin and Mystique. Now, I talked about Darwin in part 1 of this list, so if you want a little bit of catching up to do, you know where to find that. Number 2, Zeitgeist. Axel Clooney. He was seen in Deadpool 2, and he made his first comic book appearance in X-Force issue 116. His ability, let's just talk about it. He can spit acid, like a lot of acid. So much acid. It can eat through any substance, and I think what makes this character even more wild is when he himself discovered these powers for the first time. Oh boy, okay. He was at the beach hanging out, he met this lovely woman, they clicked, it was romantic, they were nice, they were kissing on the beach, and then all of a sudden this happens. A lot of acid puke, real nasty stuff. Ugh. But this guy is super powerful, like he can take on so many mutants. I mean, it's gross, but if only he didn't spew it out of his mouth, maybe he had fingers that could do the acid shooting, he would be less of a gag. Pun intended. And finally, coming in at number 1, Jubilee. Making her first appearance in Uncanny X-Men issue 244, Jubilee, aka Jubilation Lee, first discovered her mutant power of generating these dazzling sparkles from her hands. She was always seen as this little sister type character from the start, but she packs a powerful, pretty punch. She was discovered by Dazzler, Cyclops, Rogue, and Storm during a rescue at the mall, and when she followed the women back through a portal, she ended up at the X-Men's temporary base in the Australian outback. Jubilee and Wolverine ended up becoming a good pair, working missions together, and they were a fun duo. Now her powers grew to a whole new level when a vampire ended up infecting the area of Union Square. This happens in Curse of the Mutants, and Jubilee, being caught in the path of this infection, ended up becoming a vampire. It was a pretty big deal. Even before the vampire stuff, this is a highly underrated character to this day.
Number 10, Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate are the alternate Justice League of Earth 3. The main difference between them and the main continuity team, though, is that they are evil counterparts to the world's mightiest heroes. Instead of protecting the people of their Earth, they use their power to intimidate and control them instead. Not so good. The Crime Syndicate are pretty fearsome when it comes to their individual power sets and abilities, rivaling the League's members themselves, but the team's weakness lies in their lack of teamwork, and often in their inflated egos. And friends, before we move on to the next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, if you love my black trench coat, be sure to let us know by clicking that subscribe and hitting that like button. Number 9, Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul if you prefer. Ra's al Ghul is traditionally thought of as a Batman villain exclusively, but he's also threatened the whole world before, and he's also threatened the whole Justice League, managing to quickly get rid of all of them using Batman's own intel, which Ra's stole. Ra's al Ghul becomes a JLA villain in the story JLA Tower of Babel. Here he uses one of Batman's strengths against him, and in so doing manages to defeat almost the entire League, except for Batman, who manages to figure out what's happening and in the end eventually put a stop to it before Ra's is able to fully execute his plan. The really crazy thing is, while Ra's did hope to defeat the League, he really just wanted them out of the way so that they wouldn't stop him. So killing the League wouldn't have even been his main focus here, but imagine if it had been his main focus. The other interesting element in Tower of Babel is it also kind of implies that while being team leader, Batman is also kind of a villain to the team, and even if Raz's plan ends up being stopped and the League recovers from the temporary defeat, Ra's at the very least did manage to destabilize the team by turning them against their own leader, Batman, who is forced to leave the team as a result of the fallout. So in a way, he kind of won that. Number 8, The Flash. Although it feels weird to include Wally West's Flash on this list, sorry Wally, he was for a short time a Justice League villain, or at least an antagonist, and without meaning to be, kind of an effective one too, although at the same time also being a victim himself here. This all went down in Heroes in Crisis, where Wally's own burden of knowledge of the previous continuity caused him to uncover records of trauma suffered by his fellow colleagues. Overwhelmed by emotion, Wally loses control of his powers, killing some who came to the Hero Therapy Center known as Sanctuary for counseling and treatment. Although, like I said, he didn't really mean to. And later he was like, I gotta make this right. And he did make it right, so he's good. It's good now. Number 7, Lex Luthor. Many people see Lex Luthor as simply Superman's nemesis, but the truth is, his genius and ambition has also driven him to take on the whole League before as well. In fact, Lex has even been driven to make his own team to rival the League from time to time, being sometimes known as the leader of the Legion of Doom, depending on which continuity and which roster we're talking about, though it should be noted he was the leader of the original incarnation of that team that first appeared in the 70s animated series Super Friends. And even beyond that, Lex was also famous for targeting the Justice League with his Injustice Gang of the World in the 90s comics, which was actually brought together by Lex for the sole purpose of destroying the whole Justice League. So yeah, definitely makes you a Justice League villain if you're out to destroy them. Number 6, Batman Who Laughs. Laughs. I think after the events of Dark Knight's death metal, we have to acknowledge the Darkest Knight, right? Hailing from the dark multiverse reality of Earth -22, the Batman who laughs was originally Bruce Wayne and operated as Batman before he became corrupted by the Joker. He would turn into a villainous combination of these two characters and become known as the Batman who laughs, an alternate version of Batman. While he would go on to rival other villains who are beyond even a multiversal level threat to our heroes, Batman who laughs at his base level without absorbing a bunch of other people's powers is kinda actually just a guy. Although a really smart and diabolical evil genius sort of guy, and maybe a guy who, you know, had his physiology slightly altered by Joker venom. But anyways, truly it's his brilliant mind and his determination that makes him so deadly. Number 5. Legion of Doom. The Legion of Doom is pretty impressive considering that they're a group often made up of some of the Justice League's most powerful and recognizable foes, both their foes as individual superheroes as well as foes who have at one time or another threatened the entire Justice League. You know, like Lex Luthor. The Legion of Doom is often seen as competition to the League, being the evil version of the team who often seek to do things their own way, a much more sinister way, usually, but sometimes also seek to rival the League's achievements, operating in the name of the greater good. However, even when they're doing that, they're still kind of, you know, against the League because they're like, we're better than you. So yeah. Number 4. Pariah. The crazy thing is Pariah originally was just a scientist who wanted to help save the multiverse, or at least warn people about its destruction, but in so doing, he kind of became driven mad by its inevitable end. Pariah is the one behind the death of the Justice League in the Death of the Justice League story arc, which happened recently, which builds up to the Dark Crisis event. He succeeded where many have failed as major Justice League antagonists. He actually managed to, you know, kill the Justice League. Perhaps this was possible for Pariah because his motivation to do so was so strong. He wasn't actually killing them out of hatred or because he felt, you know, they were in his way or they had like done him wrong, but because he felt their very existence basically threatened the existence of the multiverse. Seeing another major crisis coming that was in essence triggered by the consolidation of all continuities and universes at the end of Dark Knight's death metal, Pariah felt the only chance he'd have at stopping it would be to basically eliminate the heroes of the day, thereby stopping the progression of the coming crisis. To him it made sense. I don't know if it makes sense to you. I don't know if it makes sense to me, but to him it made sense. Number 3. Darkseid. Darkseid has to be one of the most powerful characters in the entire DC universe, hands down. Especially because although he might not appear to be on the same threat level as some of the others on our list, he's a villain that pretty much has to exist. In other words, you can never fully defeat Darkseid. Darkseid is, meaning that he will keep coming back even after he's defeated. This is because Darkseid is basically like a universal constant in the DC universe. Aside from that, Darkseid is a master strategist and is also known for being an immensely powerful warrior himself and being. He is insanely strong, nigh invulnerable, and comes equipped with Omega Beams, which are said to never miss their target. The beams can either disintegrate Darkseid's opponent completely or can be used as a life trap when Darkseid chooses instead to employ the Omega Sanction. The Omega Sanction actually traps targets in a series of synthetic lives, which was what happened to Batman instead when he was believed to have been killed by Darkseid. While some individuals can straight up resist the Omega effect, the Omega Beams are also said to be powerful enough to destroy entire planets, which seems like a contradiction, but hey, maybe the people that can avoid the Omega effect are also themselves powerful enough to destroy planets. Would that make sense? I don't know. Number 2. Anti-Monitor. Speaking of beings who have the ability to destroy entire worlds, Anti-Monitor one-ups this by possessing the ability to destroy entire universes. He is the villain we know from the famous Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event. This event completely changed the history of the DC universe, after the Anti-Monitor attacked and successfully destroyed many worlds, causing the continuity to in essence be reset and reorganized as a result of the fight against him. Also, I feel like you know you're a powerful villain if you can like change up like the whole world like that. That's pretty crazy. Number 1. Perpetua. Perpetua is actually probably one of the most powerful villains that the Justice League has ever come up against to date, and probably one of the most powerful villains just ever. Period. End of statement. She is the mother of the Anti-Monitor, Monitor or Over-Monitor, and the World Forger. Perpetua is actually believed to be one of the most fearsome beings in all of the Omniverse. Never mind the universe or even the multiverse, the Omniverse. The Omniverse holds within it all the known multiverses in existence for those that believe in that. That being the multiverses that are not just DC, but like DC, Marvel, like any multiverse you can imagine that exists, including our own. Which means, yeah, Perpetua is basically on a whole other level. While she was defeated in Dark Knight's death metal, Perpetua is still seen as being a foe possessing nigh omnipotence, with her even being implied as the creator of the universe, having likely been the hand of creation involved in sparking the Big Bang. She was tricked by the Batman who laughs and manipulated by him into giving up kinda like all of her crisis energy power, thereby in the end being defeated, but still, at base levels, she would be considered one of the most powerful beings in the known Omniverse. Even though now, you know, she got put in the Source Wall and it got destroyed, but still, I still think we need to tip our hats. Sure, she'll be back at some point. Number 10, James Gordon Jr., also known as X-Strike. James Gordon Jr. is a sociopath who in the New Earth continuity believed that empathy made you weak, and set out to prove as much to Batman. While he is just a sociopathic murderer who enjoys hurting other people, James also happens to have a genius-level intellect, which is obviously a pretty deadly combination. In the story Black Mirror, he set out to administer medication he had made to infants which increases psychotic tendencies, a medication he himself was using, supplementing the meds that would have helped to subdue those tendencies and calm those instincts within him. It took a while before the Bat family or the Gordons managed to figure out that something was not right when James returned. Although at least his dad, Commissioner Jim Gordon, had instincts that something was pretty much up right away and decided to follow those, which ultimately allowed James's plot to be uncovered and for him to be apprehended in the end. In the Prime Earth continuity, he was part of the Suicide Squad and was known for being their analyst. James also seems to be one of those villains who dies in stories but then always somehow comes back. I feel like he's done that at least a couple times, so although he's dead right now, he'll probably come back at some point. If I was writing, I'd bring him back. I like James Gordon Jr. Number 9, Holiday. Holiday has to be one of the most unexpected villains in Batman and Gotham's rogue gallery, and an accomplished unexpected villain at that. Holiday was a serial killer who seemed to be targeting the criminal mob family known as the Falcones with his targets. However, then the Maroni family was also targeted, another massive crime family in Gotham. This created a lot of tension between Sal Maroni and Carmine Falcone, the head of both families respectively. However, in the end, Holiday wiped out not just many of the people and members of the Falcones, but also killed various members of the Maroni family as well, with the killings taking place on holidays. In the end, Batman and Jim Gordon managed to apprehend Holiday, but only after he had successfully killed Sal Maroni on Labor Day. Holiday turned out to be the youngest son of Carmine Falcone, Alberto, who wanted to prove himself and get revenge for being excluded from the family business. Although in reality, this was pretty much done to protect him. Wow, that's unfortunate. Holiday would later face off with Calendar Man, and after being wounded would be smothered to death by his sister. Tragic. Number 8, Calendar Man. Well, of course I gotta put Calendar Man above since he beat Holiday, and that's how it goes. For a guy that pulls off crimes inspired by different holidays, seasons, and calendar dates, Calendar Man can actually be surprisingly successful and terrifying. In his first encounter with Batman, Calendar Man managed to pull off 4 crimes successfully before he was caught. Aside from that, over the years, Calendar Man in the comics has taken his crimes to the next level, even going so far as to murder families as part of a Thanksgiving Day crime spree, sitting down to steal a plate of dinner after successfully wiping out an entire targeted family. That is pretty dark. Of course, Calendar Man's weakness tends to be similar to Riddler's, namely that he leaves clues as to how to capture him often, and we always know his crimes will revolve around notable days in the calendar, so makes it pretty easy to watch out for him. Like, is a holiday coming up? Well, we should probably watch out for Calendar Man. Number 7, Owlman. Pretty much everything about Owlman from Earth 3's crime syndicate is unexpected. He's the evil counterpart to Batman, but is not Earth 3's version of Bruce. Instead, he is Thomas Wayne Jr., who on his Earth was Bruce's older brother. He himself plotted to kill his parents as he believed they were mismanaging their wealth, which would of course end up being his inheritance. In the end, Bruce refused to help Thomas and even attempted to convince him to to halt his plot. So Thomas Jr., saddened, was forced to kill his brother, having had much higher hopes for young Bruce. Thomas would then become Owlman and use a combination of fear, wealth, and influence to take control of Gotham. Still missing his brother, he decided to find someone to fill that hole in his heart. After meeting Dick Grayson at the circus, Thomas orchestrated the death of his parents in secret and then offered him support and a home, manipulating him into becoming his sidekick, Talon. Yeah, pretty shocking stuff.
Number 6. The Phantom Stranger. The original Phantom Stranger was a mysterious figure whose origin and name have never been revealed. The Phantom Stranger is truly just an enigma. My favorite origin story for him is that he was originally a private citizen during the biblical times and was spared from God's wrath. An angel was then sent to deliver him from said divine wrath, and after questioning God's actions, he committed, but the angel forbid his spirit from entering the afterlife and reanimated his body and condemned him to walk the world forever, to be a part of humanity but also forever separated from it. It was then he discovered his divine charge to turn humanity away from evil one soul at a time. Basically, his entire goal was to provide warnings for events that were on their way without actually intervening himself. These warnings were often very cryptic because of this, since he's not allowed to directly stop anything. As an immortal with immense magical powers including, but not limited to, dimensional travel, spectral sight, transmutation, and energy blast, the Phantom Stranger has helped out the Justice League on multiple occasions and has inadvertently saved countless lives. Check him out for yourself in his first appearance in 1952's The Phantom Stranger #1, or check out his Prime Earth counterpart in 2012's Justice League Volume 2, Number 6. Number 5. Mary Marvel. Fun fact, Mary Marvel has the distinction of being the very first female spin-off of a male superhero, making her debut in 1942's Captain Marvel Adventures Volume 1 Number 18, predating Supergirl by more than a decade. Now, just like her twin brother Billy Batson, she became involved with the world of wizards and magic words, and by calling out the name Shazam, she can take on the same powers as her brother. However, in many of their stories, it's explained that she, her brother, and Freddie Freeman all share a finite amount of power, meaning that the more heroes who use their abilities, the weaker they all are. Interestingly enough though, Mary has also received her powers from other sources outside of Shazam. Black Adam previously gave her his powers, making her prone to violence, and Darkseid further manipulated her powers to turn her into a purely evil entity, able to cut right through a human body without any remorse or resistance. In this form, she was able to overpower someone as strong as Wonder Woman. Honestly, it doesn't really matter where she gets her powers from, she is definitely a formidable foe and more than deserves a spot on this list today. Now, if you want to know more about this character, check her out in her first appearance, or feel free to skip ahead to a more recent storyline in 1994's The Power of Shazam graphic novel. Number 4. Icon. Hailing from the planet Turbinus, Augustus Freeman, aka Icon, was marooned on Earth in 1839 in the Deep South. He worked long and hard and was very involved in a lot of black history, but it wasn't until he met Raquel Irvin that he became Icon, the icon for the black community of Dakota City. Augustus is portrayed as a very intelligent and somewhat rigid person, and due to his upper class job as a big-time lawyer and his quote-unquote proper way of speaking, he is often criticized for being a sellout, which isn't true at all. He just likes to do things properly and by the book, you know? Thanks to his alien physiology, Freeman has superhuman strength, speed, agility, and stamina. He can also fly and is basically invulnerable and doesn't actually need any food or sustenance to survive. After seeing him use his powers, Raquel persuaded Augustus to become a superhero named Icon, with herself as his sidekick, Rocket, thanks to the help of an inertia belt that allows her to manipulate kinetic energy. Throughout the majority of his series, Icon and Rocket do their best to take down these street thugs and criminals that gained powers after the Big Bang, which was a massive riot where quantum-juiced tear gas was thrown and gave superpowers to a vast majority of people. Check out the Icon and his series for yourself, starting with 1993's Icon number 1. Number 3. Zatanna. One of the greatest magic users in the DC universe, Zatanna is the daughter of the legendary magician Zatara, and does all that she can to live up to his legacy and his expectations. She spends her nights working as a simple stage magician, you know, card tricks and all that jazz, and then her late nights working as a consulting sorcerer and a superhero. Typically, to activate her spells, she speaks backwards, like for example, Tagroff would make someone forget something, Lay would heal any wound, you know, etc, etc. But that is all just for showmanship, because she can actually cast her spells by speaking normally or with no words at all, and on occasion she will write them down in her own blood. Aside from minor manipulations, Zatanna is also capable of complete elemental control, teleportation, altering reality, time travel, and a whole lot of other crazy stuff. Throughout the comics, we have seen her team up with the Justice League of America and the Sentinels of Magic to help take down the Secret Society of Villains, Eclipso, and so many more. Check out Zatanna for yourself in her first appearance in 1964's Hawkman number 4, or if you'd rather see her Prime Earth counterpart, check out 2011's Justice League Dark number 1. Number 2, Mon-El. Did you know that Kryptonians aren't the only alien race that gain incredible superpowers with exposure to a yellow sun? Daxamites from the planet Daxam are actually an evolutionary offshoot from the people of Krypton, and much like their cousins, they gain all the abilities that Superman possesses on Earth. With that in mind, enter Mon-El, a Daxamite hero who was inspired by Superboy. Mon-El traveled to Earth when a young Clark Kent was still living in Smallville. When he was exposed to lead, his one and only weakness, Mon-El had to be placed in the Phantom Zone to save his life. Thousands of years later, he was cured by Brainiac 5 and recruited into the Legion of Superheroes, where he has been considered one of the most powerful members just to date. He might not be quite as strong as his Kryptonian counterparts, but he has shown that he can take anyone from the super family in a fight, as he's wiped the floor with the likes of Supergirl, Superboy, and even the Man of Steel himself. After the establishment of New Krypton, Superman decided to live with his people, and he then trusted Mon-El enough to entrust him with the city of Metropolis and a place in the Justice League. Check out his story for yourself in his first appearance in 1961 Superboy number 89. And number 1, Captain Atom. Sentenced to death for a crime he didn't even commit, Captain Nathaniel Atom was offered a full pardon if he took part in an experiment involving an alien metal and a nuclear bomb. He accepted, and instead of killing him, he survived the explosion and was blasted 18 years into the future and bonded with the metal to become Captain Atom. From that point on, he was basically a living nuclear reactor, meaning he could absorb and redirect energy, see electronic signals, and unleash massive energy blasts that can destroy cities, one of which was strong enough to destroy an entire universe. He can also change some physical properties of certain materials, turning arrows into butterflies, or even, creating his own universe. Now that is just one iteration of Captain Atom. How about we take a look at the second, Alan Atom. Now Alan Atom was the character carried over to DC from the original Charlton Comics series. Essentially a quantum Superman, Captain Alan Atom was born in a nuclear fire. Having his body reassembled with the aid of his atomically supercharged mind, he became a physical god on Earth. He has all the powers and abilities of Watchmen's Dr. Manhattan, and he was one of the few characters to survive Final Crisis, which I think just outright states how strong he is.